evening, and thank you so much for joining us for another segment of the Urban Academics Roundtable. Today is Thursday, July 2nd, 2020, and today is no different than any other day since we started these wonderful discussions around issues that pertain to Black, brown, and poor people living in inner cities, experiencing this urban lifestyle that so eloquently has just come to find us. We are blessed more than normal tonight, and I say that without, slighting anyone else or shading anyone else. But we are at Urban Roundtable number 12, and there's something about the number 12. And there's something about the number 12. There's something about the number 12. And here we are. And trending remains COVID-19. We are back in the loop of racism and equality and justice for all, and the preamble and anything else we can go back to point to what's wrong with how they treat us as Black, brown, and poor people. But the bottom line is that we can't lay there and die. We're going to stand up. We're going to stand up for one another. We're going to stand up for ourselves, for our families, and we're going to say the things that need to be said. But mostly we need to ask the questions that need to be answered. So those who show up to this roundtable are those who have answers. We're not going down to the barrel to pick the people down the bottom who just complain and bicker and throw rocks and stones at one another. But we're looking up to the top where those people have somehow managed to rise above the nonsense to find something worth soaring for. And so we want to be up there with the eagles. And so I think today we have a bona fide, like one of those eagles with the big old wide wings that's just soaring up there, not alone, but able to soar alone. We're never alone because we need the current, we need the wind, we need the push, we need the drive. So we need all of that. And so we're grateful tonight. Really, really grateful tonight that we have a wonderful, wonderful pillar in the community, in the space of mental health. And I'm just really grateful. I'm just really honored that you would accept this hot seat tonight. And so before I even say your name, I will go over a few things since I'm still on the line. And so we'll do a little bit of housekeeping, which is pretty much, it's a discussion. So we'll have people coming in and out. For the most part, we are expecting folks from Atlanta, Georgia, Boston, Massachusetts, Charleston, South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, New Haven, Connecticut, New York, Phoenix, Arizona, and Upper Marlboro, Maryland. And we've had a few others join. I haven't been saying their cities and states, so we want to give them an opportunity to show up a few more times before we do that. But we will at some point give everyone a chance to shout themselves out, where they're from, what brings them to the round table, and how they ever exceed their invitation. Not everyone at the round table is in the hot seat, but we do want everyone that's at the table to know that they can eat. They can take out their napkin, put it around their neck, take out their silverware, and if you know how to go from the outside to the inside, you got a little etiquette with yourself. If not, we'll teach you. And we're just going to just have a great time at the table, eating and sharing one with another. And then we ask that whoever shows up to this call tonight, God, that they be information disseminators, that this information that they learn tonight is not for them to be greedy. It's not for us to consume only on our own, but it's for us to share with anyone else who might need to be a part of what we're doing here today and to share in the information that we have with the rest of the world. So with that said, I am very, very, very happy to introduce Lady Keturah Bryant, from a retired mental health professional from Connecticut Mental Health System in Connecticut there in New Haven. So I'm going to pass this over to Kay, and she'll take us out from here.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to all.
New Haven, Connecticut.
Thank you, Ronald. Welcome. I am Kay Harvey, proud to co-host the Urban Academics Roundtable with founder of the Roundtable, Patrina Reddick. And as we gather around this table tonight, Lord, we ask that you continue to bless us. Lord, we are available. We know you use us when we make ourselves available. We are available. Heavenly Father, we know that you are teaching us how to be silent in a frustrated season. The less we say, the more he moves. We shall stay silent so we can hear, be available. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Those who receive invitations to sit as a guest speaker in the hot seat are respected by peers and considered leaders in their respective fields. The Urban Academics Roundtable welcomes Lady Keturah Bryant to this week's hot seat. Ms. Bryant is a licensed marriage and family therapist, LMFT. I was laughing because I said, this sister has so many alphabets after her name. I said, I am so proud to be able to. And I'm going to say each and every one of them. Licensed addiction and drug abuse counselor and certified clinical supervisor. Her many years of professional experience coupled with leadership roles makes her perfect for this week's hot seat. Lady Keturah Bryant, now retired from the Connecticut Mental Health Center Substance Abuse Treatment Unit in New Haven, where she served for 30 years, starting as a nurse clinician and climbing the ranks to assistant clinical director of the Substance Abuse Unit. Some of her notable accomplishments are National Acupuncture Detoxification Association, NADA, co-chair of training, Certified National Acupuncture Detoxification Association trainer, developed a specialized NADA training for physicians and advanced practice clinicians under the guidance of Michael O. Smith, MD. Annually, she's a trainer at the Yale University School of Medicine since 2009. She is the founding partner of Multicultural Perspectives in Assessment, Consultation, and Training, MPACT, M-P-A-C-T. She's specialized in experience in cultural competence training, in healthcare delivery, and in staff development. She is an entrepreneur. She is the current CEO for Global Alchemy Group Training Division. It's educating people on the importance of generational wealth and health. She is a VIP affiliate with Carrot Bars International, a gold saving and wealth building opportunity, NNA certified notary public and signing agent with Ascension Mobile Notary. She has developed the certification program, the Zola Experience, a journey of recovery from loss, a brief treatment intervention addressing grief, trauma, and loss. This training is offered to clinicians. Lady Keturah has worked in private practice as a clinician and as a consultant to various agencies in Connecticut. Lady Keturah is the proud mother of 3, grandmother of 8, and surrogate mother to many. Lady Keturah Bryant co-hosts a weekly podcast with her daughter Hafisa Toure. The Abundance is Your Birthright on the Calfani Radio social media platforms. Please remember that what you find here at Urban Academics is shareable. Keturah also enjoys line dancing and swing dancing. She is also a lifetime member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, a.k.a. Sorority Incorporated. Tonight's discussion, Psychology Facts About Human Behavior with Keturah Bryant, licensed marriage and family therapist, LMFT, licensed addiction and drug counselor, certified clinician, supervisor, entrepreneur, facilitator, trainer, and more, is here in the hot seat. sharing experience, skills, and wisdom. The Urban Academics Roundtable Intellectual Talk welcomes Lady Keturah. Let's give her a round. Thank you.
Yay, go Keturah. Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, my God. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay. All right, good.
Virginia and California hears you.
I am quite humble to, you don't oftentimes hear all of that. You do a resume and, then you just don't hear it, but to actually hear it, it's very humbling, and I feel very, very blessed to be here tonight. I'm humbled that you have invited me to the table. And the seat is warm, but I think I'll be all right because I know you sisters are going to hold me up. And so, it's like, okay, where to start? So I in an effort for you to just kind of understand my journey, it's like they always say, I don't look like what I've been through. And oftentimes people perceive that, I think it's Phyllis Wheatley said, they think your life is a crystal stair. And but it has not been. But it also, as I look back on my journey, everything was a building block to something else. And even though those times in my life was very, very challenging, it still was part of my building block that got me here today. That it was, I always say I'm just so grateful that God can see around the corner, because what's in front of me was pretty daunting at times. And I just had to just hold on and remain faithful and faith-filled as I went through the experiences that I went through. So I would say that I come from a family of healers, non-traditional healers, one might say. My great-grandmother, she was an herbologist, actually, unofficially, but there's some history to that as to the profession that I am in, which is the medical profession. And around the turn of the 1900s, they made traditional healers like my grandmother illegal. The midwives, the chiropractors, the natural healers, you then all of a sudden had to have license or other things. And that really did impact the communities of color a great, great deal, because the woman that was birthing babies in the community now all of a sudden had to go to graduate school to be a midwife. Really? So, we've been birthing babies and catching babies for millennia, and all of a sudden this system that we are working in that wasn't that motherhood wasn't good enough. For my great grandmother Matilda Crump Pierce, she would cook up some herbs in a New York minute. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, my first 7 years of my foundation. And the thing that I remember most about Nashville during that time was it was very warm, it was very loving, it was very consistent. There were things that I now know that were just part of our historical tradition. My grandmother, we had no grass on Herman Street. My great-grandfather, every day when he came home from the lumber mill, would sweep the dirt and pattern. And I have come to understand that was a West African tradition of sweeping the dirt in different patterns. But we didn't know that. We just thought that's what Papa Algie did. And every day he would say the same thing, because their house was the hub of all of their children and their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren. Everybody would convene at their house, drop their kids off, go to work, and my great-grandmother would take care of us. And there was a whole bunch of us. There was a heap of us. And it just was, he would say the same thing every day. Don't you all mess up my dirt. He would say that, don't you all mess up my dirt. And you could probably count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One cousin, somebody onto the dirt. And there we would have it, we would be playing. But my great-grandmother would, around the perimeter of the yard was greenery. I remember her daffodils. I remember the honeysuckle. But I remember just this rim of green. And whenever anything happened, she would just go out in the yard, pick something, and then go concoct something that would address an issue. So I came from that kind of healing tradition, which I'm sure she got from her mom, which was, we called her Gran. And I was a fifth-generation baby. So I had this woman, this Native American woman, hold me. So I had that energy in me as well. So my mother's the nurse. We had nurses in the family, physicians in the family. We just came from a tradition of healers. And my grandmother was a beautician, a master beautician, and she healed through making people feel physically better, mentally better. So when she, wasn't looking, their very best, she would just do their hair. She won awards from designing hair, and she called herself a master beautician. And so that kind of healing was the tradition that I came out of. My mother was a teenage mom. When I was born, I was the second of her children. My mother was less than 20 years old when I was born, and she was a brilliant woman. She still is alive, and she's doing well. But she was a brilliant woman. She graduated from high school at 16. She matriculated to TSU with her desire at that time was to be a physician. She wanted to go to medical school. I had an older brother, Bruce. At the time, so she has a son, and then she becomes pregnant with me. We have the same father, but that union she really had, her heart set on marrying my dad, Lee Henry Thompson. And that wasn't to be. He had made some other choices in his life that, ended up that he did not marry my mother, but married that would be the woman that would be my stepmom, Mom Johnny. It was devastating for my mother. That was probably, during the entire time she was pregnant with me, the family folklore was that she was very, very depressed, that she didn't get out of bed for months other than to go to the bathroom, I presume. But the Council of Women took care of her. These women, her sisters, her cousins, her aunt, they would come, and her great-grandmother, they would come and they would take care of her. They would feed her if she needed to be fed, bathe her. They would just take care of her. And allowed her to grieve, allowed her to experience her own sadness in a very safe place. And so this went on till the end of her 8th month of pregnancy. And my grandmother said that she came home and she told her, okay, it's time for you to get up now. You got to take care of your son, and you're about to have another baby. And so she got up, just like that. And she, got herself together and had me. When I was about 2 months old, my dad came to see me, and I wouldn't interact with him again until I was an adult person. So in the meantime, my mom got on with her life. She ends up meeting and marrying Carson Bryant, who initially was my stepdad and then would come to adopt me and my brother Bruce to become his children when we were older. And so she was getting on with her life. But as a result of that, she ended up going to New York, to where my dad was from, and she threw herself into helping him to, get out of, get an education, because his desire was to become an engineer, to get his education, and then they moved to Denver. But in the meantime, I was in Nashville with my grandmother and all of my cousins and aunts, and it was, it was in this very nurtured and cocooned environment. And, they said that, they would come visit us annually, but when you're that young, who remembers all of that? I do have a vivid memory of going to New York and being on an airplane for the first time, probably when I was about 3, almost 4, and we went to pick up my sister. She was an infant. She was like 3 months old, and we went to get her so she could join myself and Bruce at my grandmother's and great-grandmother's house. So that's one vivid memory that I have, but I didn't really remember them as parents. And so when Pop graduated from the University of Denver as an electrical engineer and got his first professional job at Boeing Aircraft in Seattle, Washington, they came to get us, and we commenced to move to Seattle. So we all know that back in the day, they didn't really prepare you for moves. It's just that, nobody thought about that psychology for children. It was just, okay, you got to go for a ride. So I thought that was pretty cool. They had a nice car, and so we get in the car, and we get to Denver. We stay there for a couple of days as we were they closed up their apartment, and we were journeying on to Seattle. But by the time we got to Denver, I was from Nashville. I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back home. I don't really know who you people are, so I miss my grandmother, and I want to go back to Mama Lynn's house. And so they told me I wasn't going back to Mama Lynn's house. They didn't know when I was going to see Mama Lynn. So I commenced to crying because, that's how I expressed myself. At 7, almost 8 years old, I commenced to crying. And I guess by the time I was crying and crying and crying, we get to about, St. Louis or wherever, they okay, enough of this crying, you have to stop. And by the time we get to Seattle, this is like the late 50s, like 59, I had eczema from my head to my toes. I just totally internalized my anxiety. I totally internalized my my fear, my uncertainties in my life. It all became internalized, and nobody would ask me about what was going on psychologically for me as a kid. They wouldn't really. Maybe you could put your phone on mute. Well, nobody would. Nobody would really, physicians or whatever, would really ask you about the other part of your life, which would be probably one of the reasons why I gravitated toward marriage and family therapy and when I became an adult. So those were my formative years in Seattle. I adjusted. On the outside, you would have thought that, we were living in the land of luxury, which we physically were. We had a beautiful home. We moved into a brand new house, brand new furniture. So, on the outside it looked good. I experienced racism for the first time when I was about 8. I was like in 3rd grade. This was when we moved to the suburbs of Seattle. We were the only people of color in the school district. We're not talking about the school. I'm talking about the district. And so it was me, my brother, and my sister was just going into kindergarten. And I remember going to school in the suburb of Seattle and getting in line for lunch for the first day. And this very Aryan-looking girl said that she didn't want to stand next to the N-word. And I commenced to beat her up. I just went off. So all of my rage from being not with my grandmother, being with these people that I didn't know anything about, experiencing things in life that frightened me, but I didn't have a voice for that. I just took it out on her. I was like, what the heck? You know, she didn't call me a name that I was well aware what that meant at 8 years old. It was a very sad commentary, but I went off on her, and they called my mother to come to school, talk to the principal about her daughter. So those of us that know what a Southern mother would do when you had to come to school to find out about your child fighting, well, Florence came in, and she looked quite, formal and, pristine. I think she had on everything but gloves, I swear to God. She came rolling up in there, and she was like, okay, that won't happen again. They told her they didn't know why I was fighting, why I started fighting. They don't know why, but I just went off on this girl and beat her up. And she was probably twice my size. So when we get in the car, my mother was like, you know what? She went off. Just the girl went off. And she was like, how dare you embarrass the family? Don't you know they want you to behave like a heathen? Now mind you, I'm 8 years old. You are representing the race. You cannot behave like that. Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words, they can't hurt you. I come to understand that words are very hurtful. But at 8 years old, that was enough trauma for me to remember it, and to remember it vividly, as if it happened yesterday. And I was like, I am representing the race, but all I know is that, she was not playing. And so I went to school, and I had to reframe whatever was going on in my world. I had to reframe it that, I can't embarrass the family, and if my mother had to come to this school one more time, she was going to, as she would say, she's going to beat the black off of me. So it was like, okay, so you adapt. So, and I experienced some other things, domestic violence was one of the things that was very new to me. It wasn't anything I experienced in Nashville. And then when I experienced it with these two strangers, and the thought of, well, I'm here and you two are strange people, and now I got to process that one of you might kill each other, and then where do I go? And then there are things that, I felt like I needed to be protective of my sister. I needed to be, I thought that my older brother would be able to take care of himself. And then when cousins came to live with us for a while, and that was an experience. All of a sudden, the minority community in the school doubled because we had three cousins that entered school. So that gave us some power. We felt empowered because there was more of us. And we had I don't know if anybody's ever played tetherball, but we constructed this tetherball court on the side of the house. And that's when the neighborhood kids really began to come to our yard because we had this tetherball. And we would have these tournaments, and we'd be just, kick a butt and take a name. And so we thought these kids were our friends, So my cousins leave because, my mom gets pregnant with my younger brother. And so my cousins leave. They go back to the East Coast. And the year following, my dad got moved to Redstone Arsenal. So, yes, he was one of those people that was part of the Hidden Figures. He was moved down there to help work on he was a radar specialist, and they were working on the launching pad or something for the space program at that particular time. But we had to stay in Seattle until the end of the school year, and so he wanted to make sure that we could take care of ourselves because he knew that his wife and his children were going to be there by themselves. And he took us, I remember he took us all out in the woods, and he was teaching my mother how to shoot a gun to protect herself. And he was teaching my brother how to shoot a gun, who at this time was like 13, 14 years old. And then he left us there so that we could finish out the school year, because we knew that we couldn't sell the house until after we left, because nobody would buy the house from us if they saw that black people were in the house. So those are things that are conversations that you come to understand. So while my dad was gone, one day the doorbell rang, and my mother opens the front door, and there was a bag on fire right in front of our front door, which could have caught the front door on fire, but her natural instinct was obviously to stomp on the fire, and it was a bag full of dog dew. And across the street, those kids that were in our yard playing tetherball were across the street laughing at us. And that was like, okay, we get it. I mean, I got it. It was like I understood it. So from that time, we moved to Huntsville, Alabama. That was a short-lived experience because the racism was too much for Pop, who grew up in New York. We moved to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And, that was a stressful time for the family as well. We experienced, a domestic situation that would just kind of color us for a very, very long time. I experienced a molestation during that time we were in Cedar Rapids. And I just felt like, the trauma of that, I needed to keep my sister safe, my youngest brother safe. That was me. That was just what I thought that I was supposed to be doing. And then we moved to the East Coast, to Lexington, Massachusetts, because, Pop got a job at Raytheon. And, would just really, just to get out, let me just get out of high school. But we made our mark in high school. I often laugh at the fact that my brother, Bruce, we got to Nashville in the middle of his junior year, in the middle of my sophomore year. And one of the things that was always a joke to people that came to know me is when you're at, those kind of management levels, they move you. So my understanding of how you move from one residence to the other, movers come in, they move you, and then you go to the next house, and all of your stuff is in your house and in the right room. So the movers came in the middle of the year. We moved to Lexington, Mass. And from January till probably May, my brother ends up getting elected class president of his class, and he comes in the middle of the junior year. It was hilarious. But he was so personable, and he went in there and turned the place out, and they voted him class president. It was phenomenal. And I took my first of being the first black cheerleader when I was in junior high. Well, at that time, in Iowa, people didn't go to high school until they were in 10th grade. So I was like one of their first black cheerleaders at Jefferson High School. And I was on the JV squad. And so I just took those skills and became the first black cheerleader at Lexington High School. Why not? And so that was, and then in the stress of being in AP and honors classes and being one of few black people that were part of that, because we were they had the METCO program in Lexington, and so they would ship in like 30 black and brown students from inner city Boston to Lexington High School. And then at 5 o'clock when all the activities were over, they would go home, and it would be me, my brother, and sister, and younger brother, and about, you could count the number of black people in Lexington at that time, probably on two hands. So I went from there to the University of Connecticut. Now, all of those things, I was trying to find my space. My mother advised me to go into nursing. And at that time, she had finished her LPN. And when we were in Alabama, she began her nursing education, and she had to get permission from the then Governor George Wallace to be in the LPN course, because they had never, ever had any black or brown people in the LPN course, and we're talking 1965. And so she got permission, but then when we moved, she had to put it on hold. But when we got to Lexington, she finished that course, and then she got admitted to the RN program at Framingham State. And so we both were in college at the same time. That was interesting. And we both finished school at the same time. UConn was an interesting experience for me. I was a nursing student, and that structural and institutional racism raised its ugly head once again. I was in the middle of my sophomore going into my junior year, and I was called into the dean's office. And she was sitting there, and at that time, it was appropriate, I guess, for them to smoke inside buildings. So she was a smoker, even though she was a nurse. And she sat me in front of her, and she was blowing smoke in my face, and she tells me that, you people don't do well in sciences. And I think you should take physics before you go into your upper division. And I said, well, I took AP physics in high school, so I have that credit already to in my resume. And she was like I said, I think you need to take physics if you want to go into your upper division. So I was like, well, I guess I'm taking physics in order to go into my upper division. So me paying for school by myself, because my dad did not think that was a good idea to pay for women to go to school, because he said all you're going to do is get married anyway. So my sister and I, we paid for our way through college. So I had to figure out how was I going to pay for summer school, and how was I going to earn money for the next semester, so I could be in my junior year. So I decided I would take a physics class out of coercion, and I took a sociology course because I knew I would get an A in sociology, and I needed a B for the physics course in order to maintain my GPA. So I did that, and I missed getting a B in that physics course by 2 points. And I went to see the professor, and I was like, does my class participation and the fact that I was at every class and did every assignment, does that warrant 2 points? He looked at me, he said, you get what you get. And I said, all righty then. But, God's grace and mercy, I could balance that off with an A, so I ended up with the B average for the summer, B plus for the summer, and I was okay. I went into my upper division and, graduated from the university and found my niche while I was in my senior year of community health and mental health nursing, psychiatric nursing. I thought I had died and gone to heaven. Med surg was not for me, but this was definitely what I wanted to do. And so I ended up building a career doing that. Got married, started a family. And one thing that I would say to young people, when you can't maintain your ultimate goal, and in the meantime, do some things in the meantime. So I must have gotten every certification known to God and man, because I knew that I was going to graduate school eventually, but I wasn't going right away. And, at that time they didn't require you to be certified or licensed to be an addictions counselor. But God really blesses me with insight, and he puts me in places, and he was like, get this certification. And I did, and I would tell all of my fellow counselors, you guys need to work on getting this because we're going to need it. And that's for a long time, they're just kind of, yeah, sure. And as we see, it has evolved to licensure, okay? So I got certified in that. I got introduced to acupuncture, not a protocol. I said, if that impacts the life of one person in a positive way to relieve them of their addiction, I was all in. So, I did that. And I just got different things along the way. And then I was blessed to go to graduate school at Southern. And there's an interesting story to that, because I was initially had applied to the MSW program. And I was on my way. I'd sat down in the orientation, and I thought I got this tremendous headache. I thought that I was having an aneurysm. Blurred vision, the whole 9 yards. It scared the hell out of me. I jump up out of this orientation, and by the time I got to my car, it had gone away. Prior to that, I had seen the syllabus for the Marriage and Family Therapy program, but I thought, oh, man, there's too many credits. Let me just knock this out. I can knock this out in no time. But that's not what God wanted me to do, and I wasn't paying attention. And so I applied to the MSW program, and like I said, I had this experience, and then it was like, okay, forget this. So I put it on hold for 2 years, because you could defer your admission for 2 years, and then after that second year, I wrote them and told them, please take me off the list. I'm not doing it. And I tell you, that day, came home, I was cleaning up my room, and the catalog for the university, Southern Connecticut University, fell off the shelf and opened up to the Marriage and Family Therapy program. And I looked at it again, and I just said, okay, let me just call them and ask them some questions so that I could see if I could do this. And I called them up. They called me in, told me to come a certain day, and I thought that it was a question and answer period, but in actuality, it was a group interview. I didn't know that. I was sitting down, and I was in a room with about 10 people, and they started asking these questions. Everybody else seemed to be quite prepared, except for me. And Professor Ed Lynch says, well, why do you think we should admit you to this program? I said, well, I don't know, because I have some questions about the program. He said, don't you know this is a group interview? I was like, no, I didn't. He said, well, why don't you just stay anyway? How would you answer the question? And I stayed, and I just answered questions verbatim. And then afterwards, he told me to go register for this Family of Origin course. And when I got a chance to fill out my application for the Marriage and Family Therapy program, and I absolutely loved the experience. It helped me through a horrible divorce, helped me through staying grounded with dealing with children and divorce, and working a full-time job and working a part-time job and all of that. I had a child getting ready to go to college, and I prayed, and I was like, God, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm a single parent. And that's when I founded Impact, which was a training and consultation business. And I got my first job from a gentleman named Warren Kimbrough. And he was famous as well as infamous. He was a former Black Panther, the whole 9 yards. But our paths had crossed the Yukon, and I didn't know until years later how that would serve me. God puts you in places. He puts people on your path that you have no idea. So when I get to New Haven, he's the director of a program in New Haven, and he said that he went on the website of the certification board, a counselor certification board, and he wanted to upgrade his counselors so that they could also be certified. We were just at that stage. And he saw my name. Before, at that time, it was Abdul Salam. He said he saw it at the top of the list. He said, I didn't go any further, and that's why I called you. And that's how we got our first contract. It was like in 1993.
Wow.
And it was, and I, brought in two of my colleagues, Dr. Brett Rayford and my good friend Asha Delarme. And we rocked that thing for many, many years, many, many years. And, I went to graduate school. And sometimes you ask for things and you don't know how they're going to manifest. So when I went to school, my ask was, I said to Professor Lynch, who I just adored her. She she was such an empathic therapist. And it was like insightful. And I said to her, I just want to sit at your feet and drink your knowledge. And then my ask to her was, I want to know how to treat families of color. She looked at me and she said, I can't do that. But what I can do is I can train you to be an excellent therapist with a great theoretical base. And she said, you'll be able to acquire that, what you want to acquire, on your own. And I was like, okay. But what I did get from Southern was Dolores D. Brown. She was in the class ahead of me, and we became lifelong friends. And that woman, D. Brown, became my mother, my sister, my mentor, my friend, my teacher. She encompassed all of those things, and she was a wise woman. And it probably isn't a day that does not go by that I don't reference something that woman taught me and showed me. Her and Francesca Martin, we were like, inseparable in graduate school. And they both taught me many things. But Dee Brown, that's what I left Southern with. That was the balance. That was the teaching me how to treat people of color, how to treat women, how to treat those that are marginalized. And so that's the gift that was given to me. And until, she took her last breath a couple of years ago, she taught me. And we worked together as friends, as colleagues, for that length of time. So my marriage and family therapy, my treatment, my addiction treatment history, all of that just kind of coalesced to get me to where I am. And I've always tried to think about the next thing and how I could help individuals. And my prayer every day that I went to work before I crossed that threshold would be, God, just bless me this day. Use me to touch one human being's life in a positive way. And if I do that, I know that I would have done your work, and I know that I would be blessed. That would be a blessed day for me. And that's how I live my professional life. That's the energy that I would carry into my workspace every day. And until I retired 30 years later from the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And, treating, one of my specialties was treating recovering healthcare professionals. I had nurses groups, and I treated doctors and physicians and pharmacists for the entire duration of my time. And then just before I was retiring, there was one thing that always just kind of stuck with me. It was around our community and recovering from grief and loss. And as therapists, we're always looking for tools, the simpler the better, of a tool to help us to do our work. And I had asked, what do people do after a funeral? And I was hesitant to approach funeral directors. And for many months, I'd wanted to approach Mr. Howard K. Hill about what he did, but I didn't do it until God put us in the same place at the same time.
We didn't use him, but she with the white rose.
Say that? Is that a question?
I think everyone please mute your phones.
Okay. So I approached him about, what happens after a funeral, and did they have any services of any kind? And he was like, well, no, not really. And I said to him, I have an idea, and if you'll give me an audience of a half an hour, I can share with you my idea. And so I presented to him. One, I came with the information that, he wasn't alone. The majority, 99.9% of funeral homes, did nothing. And I said, well, I can put together a curriculum. And so we worked together, and I put together a curriculum, and we called it Zola. And that was the birth of the Zola experience. And I did it with the Howard Cahill family for 4 years and collected a lot of data that said that it clearly worked. And as life would happen, things, we just kind of lay dormant. And for a number of reasons, we just kind of lay dormant with it. And then COVID came along. And I was, like everybody else, trying to figure this whole thing out. And at about 5:30 in the morning, Spirit came to me and woke me up. I don't know if anybody's had those kind of experiences. When Spirit calls you, sit straight up in your bed, and it was like the voice was very clear. It's time for you to do Zola again, and you're going to do it differently. And what my intuitive instruction was that I needed to train clinicians, because I can train clinicians globally to do this 7-session brief treatment intervention that has a proven track record of working. I expanded it from the original 6 sessions to 7 sessions to include a specific session on forgiveness. And so that's what I have been working on during my period of stillness during this whole COVID thing. And I'm in the process of sending the document off to a copywriter, to the copyright office to get it copywritten, that and the curriculum. And because we need the whole essence of Zola, the Zola means to love. And when you're talking about grief and recovery, it really is about loving yourself and loving the lost love object enough for you to move on. And initially it was designed to work with groups around grief and loss of a person. But I began using it in my private practice with individuals who had lost a significant other relationship, not even the significant other, they had lost the relationship. People that had lost jobs, people that had lost careers. So I began to use those 7 things to help them to move through that. And it was equally as impactful. And so that is, I think, is my life work at this moment, in this time, is to be blessed to bless the world with the Zola experience. And so that's been my journey. And it's interesting because you don't know how the building blocks will work. I didn't really understand why God had led me to be a therapist and be so passionate about it until I was helping Pop, my adopted dad, through his transition. And I was really blessed. I was blessed to meet and to have a 14-year relationship with my biological father. And each of these men brought me different things. From the time that my mother was devastated with the loss of that relationship with my biological father, and the fact that, these crone women nurtured her through her depression. And some people think that, the energy that of her being depressed for that long while she had me in utero would perhaps influence my chemistry and make me a depressed person. But I think it was what she received from those women that gave me that made me a hopeful and positive person that I believe that I am. And so, when I met my biological father when I was 35 years old, so I want people to know that when God says yes, it just happens. I expect miracles every day. And that was one of my miracles, to meet my dad. And to be able to walk through forgiveness and I hadn't gone to graduate school at that time, and I was, I was just so elated to meet him, and he was able to tolerate courageous conversations with me. And I remember after he came to my graduation when I graduated from Marriage and Family Therapy School. And then 2 years after that, I was getting ready to take the Marriage and Family Therapy exam. Not that I had planned to take it at that time, because Professor Lynch approached me and said, I want you to teach this class. I want you to teach theory, marriage and family therapy theory in the spring semester. He said, but you have your license already, don't you? I said, well, no, I was getting ready to take it next spring. He said, oh, no, you got to have it before then. I was like, oh, my God. So this was like in September, and the exam was in November. And I said to him, well, if I can get it together, if I am to get all this stuff together and take this exam in November, then I'll be ready to teach it. So I had to call my dad, and I said to him, I need your help. It's going to take me, now mind you, I'm single at this point in time, trying to hold it down with 2 kids in college, by the way, by this time. And I said, I need your help. I got to take this exam and this review course, and it's going to cost me about $1,200. And he's like, baby girl, you got it, without hesitation. And so I studied, sequestered myself, quarantined myself, and I just, isolated myself from the world for about 6 weeks, took that review course, and took the exam, and I passed the exam and then studied. And so he was very instrumental in that. But he was instrumental in my healing from that separation and the question. He was able to tolerate my questions, my anger, my tears, and all of that. And he was able to apologize. He was able to say, I'm sorry. And he was able to say, I love you, and all of those things that I needed from him. And, my relationship with Pop who adopted me when I was a teenager, about 14. It took him during his transition time for us to truly bond in a heartfelt way, in a way of forgiveness, in a way of truly heartfelt love and caring for each other. Our relationship had always been hard, and I didn't really understand it. And my thought was, okay, I just need to, be available but be emotionally separate from him. And as God would have it, I ended up spending like 8 weeks with him. And it started off him telling his story. It's funny because, I was resolved that I wasn't going to be in his presence. I was just going to go in the room and check on him and Mom, and I was going to go into my room and not talk. But when I got in there, Spirit said, you need to have a seat. I tried to listen to that intuitive voice, and I said, Pop, I'm going to sit here with you for a little while, but I can't listen because he listened to Fox News all the time. It made me crazy. I said, I can't listen to that. We gotta find a space where it's okay for both of us. And we ended up looking at HGTV. We both left houses and all of that stuff that went with that. And that first night, I sat there, and he started talking about his life. And I was like, I can't hear you, so let's put it on mute. And so he put it on mute, and I allowed him to talk. So every night from 8:30 to 11, I would be sitting at his bedside. And the second night I came in, he had it on mute. The third night I came in there, he had the TV off. He had the TV off. I sat, I listened. And it was really hearing his story and the pain and his triumphs and his desire to learn how to love, because as I always say to my clients, children learn what they live, but adults live what they've learned.
Mhm.
And that's just the nature of things. And so, but the beauty of being an adult versus a child is you can unlearn it. But he didn't have the opportunity to unlearn it. He loved his family as best that he could. He loved us enough to provide a home for us. We had all of the things, the environment that, you know, some people would be envious of. We always lived in, you know, great physical homes. We traveled. We had annual vacations. We did all of those things. And that was how he loved. But he struggled with loving us. And once he told me and shared his story, I understood. And he and I were able to truly love each other prior to him dying. And I was able to look him in his eyes and say, I love you. And he was able to tell me that he loved me too. And that was the benefit of that journey, of all of those things that happened that led me to that space. And then, you know, the inspiration. You know, Percy Sutton said, if you're going to pray for something, pray for an idea. And so the idea of the Zola experience came out of all of that. And I understood it. And so that's where I am right now today, is launching this program and praying that my fellow clinicians will join me on this journey. So that's my story.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lady Couture. Thank you. So we are now going to open this up for questions.
Yes.
To Lady Couture. And could you identify yourself and where you are from as you ask your questions?
Hi, I'll start. This is, hi, Couture. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. I'm Allison Williams. We've met before. I'm a friend of your sister, Regina Fields. I'm out in California.
Oh, hi. And my soror. How are you?
Yes, that's right. AKAs, that's right. You started your conversation by telling us about your family of healers. And I wanted to know, do you believe that healing is a spiritual gift that's given to a select few, or is it a gift that everyone has within themselves, you know, the ability to heal, that just has to be nurtured? You know, you mentioned that you can be a healer in the traditional sense of, you know, a medical professional, or you can even be a beautician that makes someone feel good. So do you think that we all have a capability to, quote unquote, heal people in different ways? Or do you think it's just a gift that's given to a select few?
I think that it's something that people intrinsically do. They can do if they tap into that space. I think everybody has the capacity to love and to give love, as well as to receive love. And that's really what that's the healer's greatest tool, is love. It's that passion that you have to offer something that will add value to another human being's life. And I know that you're in a profession that adds value to people's lives. And so we heal in different kind of ways. You know, not everybody heals through medicine or through touch. Like I say, you know, my grandmother, she healed individuals just through her being able to make them physically, mentally feel better. And I know that when I was struggling throughout all of those things that I was doing, and I would call her and I, you know, would tell her, you know, Mama Lynn, I'm struggling. I'm so sad. I'm going through all of this, and I'm overwhelmed, and I'm this. And her mother wit, her intuitiveness said to me that she understood all of that. And she told me that I was going to be all right. But the number one thing that she told me, she says, this is what I want you to do. She said, I want you to promise me that whenever you leave the house, that you will look like a doll. And I was like, oh, my God. But, see, that's what I would tell, as a therapist, I would tell that to my client. I would frame it in a different way. I would say, you know, it's important that you get up, that you take a bath, that you do some level of grooming, that you leave the house in the, you know, putting your best foot forward as much as you can. But that's what her PhD in motherwit told me. So I think that people, yes, I think that we all have that capacity, but it's something that you really have to tap into and let that be one of your asks. And I know that if you think about, because I know the profession that you're in, and if you think about it, Allison, you have changed people's lives in positive ways. You have added such value to people's lives in the work that you do. So you, too, are a healer because you've relieved anxiety, you've relieved stress about someone having life insurance or car insurance or home insurance. You've relieved them of that. And so, yes, you are a healer as well.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing your perspective, and I agree with you, but thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This is Elsie from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I chimed in, but I heard a little of it as well. And do you think you can be a self-healer to yourself by having the faith in Christ that you can heal yourself?
Yes, you can heal yourself. God made us to have that capacity of self-healing. I mean, we are a microcosm of the earth. The earth regenerates and self-heals itself, which it's doing now because we stopped polluting it and doing all of those things. And you see the animal life and all of those tree life and the ozone closing up and all of those things. So, yes, we do have the capacity to heal ourselves. But we also, because we are communal and we are human beings, we oftentimes may need support to heal ourselves because there's one element that we struggle with when we talk to ourselves, and that we might need and we do need an objective voice, an objective ear, and an objective voice, because we don't want to inflict any self-pain on ourselves. So we're going to say things to ourselves that are going to be soothing. But a therapist like myself, I may say some things to you that are going to make you feel uncomfortable. But you'll need to feel uncomfortable in order for you to move past what is holding you back so that you can heal yourself. And if you think about it, it's nothing that nature doesn't automatically do. Babies come out of the womb because it's uncomfortable being in that confined space, and it's uncomfortable going through that birth canal. But, you know, it's something we have to do. We can't stay there. And so, yes, our spiritual walk plays a great deal of a role in our healing. But how do we use that spiritual walk? Are we going to use it to move forward? But we do need, you know, God gave us things that will help us on that journey. And especially for Black and brown people, we tend to not want to go to therapy. We think that that's something that, you know, we can just keep those messages in our head and not, you know, utilize that tool that God gave us, you know. And I see that being a therapist is one of those gifts that God gives us so that we can help us on that journey, support us on that journey of healing. And it's just like, you know, to use, if people would see us as therapists as you do a medical person, a medical physician or a nurse. You know, if you got a broken bone, I would want you to go to an orthopedic. I would not want you to come see me to try to mentally help you heal that bone. I want you to go to an orthopedic, get it set, and then we can work on the whys of and helping you to focus on healing the other part of you.
I've got a two-part question with that. Do you believe that our food that we eat is also the medicine for us to heal us as well?
Absolutely. This friend of mine who is I say that this, Dr. Jim Sharps, he is a naturopathic medicine. He's a physician as well as a naturopath. And he's probably, he made a statement one day during one of his talks, and he said that people dig their graves with their fork.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, what you put in this temple is equally as important as what you put in your mind. You have to put good things in your mind, and you got to put good things in your body. And you can't not do both, because if that means you're not going to be a balanced human being. So we're seeing now, they're saying that they don't understand why black and brown people are so decimated by this COVID thing. As if you think the fact that how many of us are living in food deserts, how many of us don't have access to fresh greenery, fruit and vegetables, and that those of us that are, how expensive it is to eat healthy. You got to have money to eat organic foods. And my question is, why isn't all things grown organic? Why do we have to pay an extra, $1 for an organic Swiss chard as opposed to just regularly grown Swiss? Why are you selling the contaminated stuff more expensive than the stuff that's growing like it's supposed to grow? But this is a system that we're working with. So absolutely, you can grow stuff on your patio. You know what I'm saying? We don't necessarily have to have acreage. Just Google patio gardens. So even if it's just you growing tomatoes on your patio, on your balcony, or in your little backyard, whatever you can do, we've got to think of food differently, and we have to demand things differently. It all becomes political. If you are voting people in, then one of the questions is, how can we get a grocery store in our neighborhood? Why I got to take a bus to go to get healthy food? And things that you don't know. That if you have an EBT card, you can go to some of these food warehouses. They will accept your card. And then we have to, community-wise, we have to begin to think about how can we make that happen. There are oftentimes those kind of stores where your dollar will go further are outside of the city. Most of the time, except if you're living in some place like D.C. or whatever. But for the majority, like even in New Haven, those food warehouses, they're outside of New Haven. But I say to families, get 3 or 4 people together and get one membership in somebody's name, and you always get a free one in somebody else's name. Take yourself on a bus to go to wherever that. I'm not going to give nobody no free advertisement. Take the bus out there to Milford or to North Haven and get an Uber back with all your groceries. It'll be cost effective. You'll save money, because you'll save money just because you can get 3 things of tomato sauce, organic tomato sauce, for the price of one at the local store. So we've got to start thinking outside the box. We've got to start eating better and building our immune systems. Going outside, even if you sit outside in the sun for 15 minutes with no sunscreen, you'll absorb enough vitamin D to last you for the day. Knowing that kind of stuff. The power of silence. Do you realize if you sit in silence that it boosts your immune system? We did a whole talk on the podcast about the benefits of silence. We did 2 weeks around the benefits of silence and being still. It's there for us. We just have to reframe it. So thank you for your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Regina in California, and in full disclosure, I am her younger sister. So I would just like a little more information, I think, maybe to group two about the Zola program and how it might be of use to each of us.
Okay, the Zola experience it's a healing tool. I wouldn't recommend that people journey through this kind of thing alone. It'll be offered, but I would say that people need to have a support network so that they can talk themselves through it. So I'm offering it to clinicians because as clinicians we can guide people through it, whether it's in a group setting or an individual. We all need healing. Everybody has experienced the loss of something, whether it's loss of body image, if it's a loss of significant other, a loss of a job, a loss of income, especially during this time when people are, industries are shutting down. We got people that have lost careers. Why? Because of quote unquote COVID. Industries are finding out, well, we don't need as many people. We can have people work from home. So we don't need as many supervisors. We don't need as many managers. So you're done. So what do you do with that? People that are in retirement they would benefit from Zola to help them to reframe their life and to let that past thing go and move forward with their life. So yes, it is a healing tool. There'll be times when I will offer that facilitation for individuals to go through it, and people will just have to sign up and we'll journey through it together. So thank you for that question, my sister, literally and figuratively.
Katrina, this is Kay. I have a question regarding this COVID-19 and the social distancing. As our children are being affected by not having, quote unquote, the normal school setting in a physical building and having to adjust to the technology of the learning by way of technology, what do you see the impact of the social distancing on our children, say from third grade and up, as they experience this social distancing, and what kind of impact do you see it having on them in the next couple of years? Even if it's 6 months of not being able to touch someone or be close to someone, what impact do you see that having on the children?
I see it having a very significant one. Adults are struggling, and they have some intellectual capacity to try to understand it, okay? So you got children, their natural instinct is touch, feel, spread germs. Oh, here's my little one. Good night, sweetie. I love you. Tomorrow. Please pardon me, family. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? I love you. Okay. He's on his way to bed. 3.5 years of him. And the advantage that somebody like he has is he has a sibling here, he has a cousin here, he has grandmother here, he has parents here, he has an aunt here. So he gets that tactile. We're communal people. We need touch. When babies aren't touched, it's called failure to thrive. Babies can die because they're not being touched. Okay, so we need to remain cognizant of that fact. Children need to interact. I don't know how they're going to do this thing. Whether they need to test, at a certain age. They said that children have some natural enzyme that COVID doesn't attach to, and they don't become an issue until after the age of 8 or 9. So we just really have to figure this thing out. I don't think that and we got to understand what is really the backstory to this whole COVID thing, because what they're not talking about is the economic impact and what they're doing, the economic changes that we are going to experience as a result of this. And this is just really giving them an excuse to accelerate what they're doing, which was being done anyway. So we just have to develop a sense of community. If everybody in your sphere has been quote unquote tested and is okay, we may have to go into more of a homeschool environment and homeschool collective environment, which really kind of takes the onus off of individual parents. And some of it can be via Zoom or electronics, but the other can be, them coming together. It's going to dissipate after a while. That's just the nature of things. But we have to give it, the system has to give it an opportunity to die down, because H1N1 flu is still here. SARS is still here. MERS is still here. All of those things that, Ebola is still here. We're going to get through this. But we need, we're not saying that it's not real, because it's very real. It's very, very real. But we will learn how to manage ourselves in the reference to that, and there'll come a time when the social distancing won't be an issue. I truly believe that, because I was a nurse during the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, quote unquote, and they were trying to bury them in separate places. They would, we were gloved up, masked up. Someone came in the clinic that was coughing. We'd send them outside and talk to them on the veranda and tell them to come back in a couple weeks, because they had that pneumocystic pneumonia that was associated with AIDS patients. We didn't know. We didn't know. And so we just, the more information you get, then we'll be able to manage it. So I think that in the meantime, we have to try to use what we have in order for them to stay social. And even though it might be, doing your school collective via social media, we just have to do that. I don't know what they're going to do for, like, first grade kindergartners, preschoolers. That's all they know is hugging on each other. They don't have the intellectual capacity to say, I shouldn't be doing that. So we're going to figure it out, and it's going to be okay. We just may have smaller communities that will be able to touch, but we need touch. We need touch. And, the Zola experience is also being able to help us, because we can't touch, we are losing. At this moment in time, we don't have the capacity to do the natural rituals that go along with even weddings, let alone death. When people are experiencing that level of loss, normally we would be at bedside. Normally we would be holding someone's hand. Normally we would be whispering in their ear, giving them permission to transition. We're not able to do that. They're giving us here, you can do a Skype to watch this person take their last breath, and maybe you don't.
Wow. Or
someone calls you up and says, it is done. And you didn't have the opportunity. So it's that kind of experience that the Zola experience will be able to help people heal through a journey of recovery and healing.
This is Katrina. I have a question all the way from Prattsville, Alabama.
Okay.
And my question is around your opinion or what you've seen over the years in terms of how in the world every single young person who's gotten a mental health DSM diagnosis, I would say 85 to 90% of those young people were identified in a school, in a classroom setting by a teacher or some caring adult in the school. And so they find out that there's some behavior that they don't agree with, and then we start watching the child, and then we put the child on a certain track. So I'm saying all that to say, what is your position or opinion on how education got swallowed up in mental health rather than the other way around? Why isn't it that education wasn't strong enough to eat mental health? Why are we so engulfed around behaviors that we've forgotten all about academics?
Well, when you look at the education system, it's very didactic. They try to train you from day one. You sit, you listen, you take tests, you move forward. Our children, that's not how we learn. Especially our males, our black boys are very active. They just are, and the system has never adjusted to accommodate children in their natural habitat. If you've ever looked at this short thing, if you want to go on YouTube, and there's a thing that's called "Are You a Connector?" Okay, and it's this short video that talks about how in the turn of the century, with the Industrial Revolution, they had to produce people that were factory workers. They were producing factory workers, and the best way to produce factory workers was to develop a school system, an educational system that developed factory workers. So if you think about how we're educated, we're moved by a bell. We're moved by this, certain framework of this whole didactic system. And at the end of it, you graduate, and then at that time, you went into a factory. Whether it was a car factory or a gun factory, whatever, you were moved by a bell, you went in and you did certain things for a certain amount of time, then you went home. And so it was really a socialization because, historically, we never learned like that. We were very hands-on learners until we got into this framework. So mental health is an industry, and the school system, as it is set up, the pharmaceutical company, which really was a turn of the century kind of thing. And if you ever get an opportunity to read this document called the Flexner Report, and that will give you a clear foundation as to how Big Pharma was created. And they need new people to consume new drugs. And so when you can start labeling people, and mental health healthcare in and of itself got caught up in the Big Pharma. We have to have a quote-unquote diagnosis, which is generally associated with a medication in order for people to be in a system, to be even treated in a system.
Right. I think that's where I'm at. I'm more economic than anything else. So my question, my second part of it, I guess, is the idea that we have boards of education who funnel money to mental health agencies where we as educational providers can't go to Medicaid and get paid for educational services. So right where Medicaid, Medicare, all the insurances are willing to reimburse for services, once you are diagnosed, and like you just said, you can't bill if you don't give some kind of diagnosis, even if it's a little separation anxiety or something like that. You have to put something down, some code. So my question, I'm serious. I want to know, why is it that I keep seeing on these education line items, mental health provider after mental health provider after mental health agency, upwards in the hundreds of thousands, when they have every right to bill for their service? We can't do that. Like, I can't go to Medicaid and say, look, I got Jimmy, Johnny, Tammy, and Ron. They're all in the same house. They all have some kind of diagnosis, some kind of learning disability, something we can point to. But the school system is frozen. Mental health is not. But I don't have a diagnosis for academic. You see what I'm saying? Like, mental health is not. If I were billing based on clinical work that I'm doing, that is recession proof. Medicaid is going to pay every Thursday. I don't care what you do, as long as you bill. That's not true for education. We're still sitting here and we don't know whether the schools are opening when they say they are, whether they're ever going to open again. There are some states that have 3, 4, 5 choices they want parents to make. Meanwhile, we have a president who's sneaking all kinds of laws into these executive orders, and I just don't know what post-traumatic stress looks like until after it's post-traumatic stress. I don't know how to ward it off for the parents and children that I work with, but I know that there's, at some point, there had to be some kind of push for mental health to swallow education, and that's what we're seeing right now, in my opinion. But I'm at your feet, so I'm trying to get an answer.
So not being an educator and being in that system, I'm on the other side, on the mental health side and the medical side. And I know from talking to colleagues that are in the educational side and how much money, how crucial it is for them to do their quote-unquote Medicare or Medicaid reimbursement billing, that's become an intricate part of the budget. In order for them to get this reimbursement is an intricate part of their budget. I think that it's kind of twofold, that you can get this reimbursement, but you got to have kids in the school to get diagnosed. The only ones that can diagnose a mental health issue is a psychiatrist, is a physician, is a doctor. And so in order for that to happen, you got to have them seen outside of the system. And then they go back into the system. And then a lot of educators are saying, well, look, you got these kids with these diagnoses. I'm not a social worker. I'm not a therapist. I'm not this. I'm an educator. And they, too, want to try to separate the two. But you have a human being in your classroom. And so what part of that child's behavior is truly a diagnosis? Is truly a mental issue, or is it that your teaching style needs to change? Is it that you need to think about how can you adapt what you're doing so that Al Kim can grasp what you're doing in a way that is interactive for him? There's some children that aren't good didactic learners. There's adults that aren't good didactic learners. But then we oftentimes try to demean them. There are some people that are tactile, hands-on learners. Like, tradespeople, for example. Those students that are in the trades department, they're looked down upon almost. Oh, they're in industrial arts. But these are individuals that are building your houses that got to understand all aspects of math and the whole 9 yards. So I think that it's one of those, it's the culture that we have to change, that we have to look at very, very differently. And we're going to have to be the catalyst for that change, that we can't function anymore in compartments. We can no longer compartmentalize education. And we're going to have to think very creative. And I think that's what this whole situation that we're in now. People are going to have to get very, very creative as to how to educate their children. And I think that as a community, we're going to have to take on some of that creativity. And it may mean that our children don't go back to the quote-unquote public school system. And that if we're doing collectives, that we have to figure out how we're going to tap into the funds for educational collectives, because there are funds out there for that. But we have to seek them out and educate our own children. But we have, like some families, some people are saying that, but I have to go to work. Well, they're telling you to work at home. And there are opportunities that are out here for you. We all know as entrepreneurs, get an idea. And become and start your own business, there are many, many home-based businesses that are out here that are viable, that people need, and that you would then have flexibility of your time, your freedom to be able to educate your children. My sister was just on the line, and she is like my hero, my homeschool hero, shero.
Mm-hmm.
She was in a situation where, you know, my niece was very bright, and she was in a school where these people, a private school, these people didn't want to accommodate this girl's genius. And they gave some crazy excuse like, you know, we don't want to send her to an upper class, you know, to the 3rd or 4th grade for reading because it would make the other kids feel bad. I'm paying you for what? So, you know, my sister was like, I don't know what to do. I was like, girl, you've been to 1st grade. You know 1st grade. And initially it was, okay, I'll homeschool her until we can get her matriculated into another school. But she discovered that this homeschool thing was the thing. And my niece, my sister homeschooled my niece until she went to high school.
Wow.
And she went to a very prestigious high school that, you know, and she excelled. And she went on to college, and she excelled some more. So we can homeschool our kids. We know 1st grade, and if what I don't know by the time I got this genius that lives downstairs from me, what I don't know of what goes on in 9th grade, there's a collective out there that can, somebody in there knows what we need to know. We have everything we need in our community to educate our children, to allow them to be able to grow. They need break times throughout the day. Who can sit for, I know I can't even sit for hours on end without getting up and moving. I know what I'm like if I don't get an exercise for more than a day. So why should we think that children can sit for 4 or 5 hours without any exercise, without any outdoor time, without any free time, without any playtime? They took away recess from public schools, which it was like, you know, that was the thing that killed our kids. Kids need to learn. They need to be outside.
Air.
Like, whose idea was that? And where were us as parents to allow that to happen? So yeah, we can do this, and we cannot make it so separate with the mental health and the educational system. That we can be more collaborative if we have to interact with the mental health system. And families, parents need to demand. We need to help parents find their voice. But if they're living in a situation where they got to work 2 jobs in order to make ends halfway meet, we got to change the economy. It's about the economics. But group economics would afford us to have more time.
That's right.
If I can introduce you to a home-based business that can take care of this XYZ, and then you only have to work outside the home for one of those, for one job, and you can make enough to supplement you in your home-based business, then we need to share that. We need to support each other to do that. We have everything we need for us to thrive. We've been doing this for millennia. This isn't the first time that Black and brown and poor people have faced a crisis. We've been in a crisis for a long time. They're talking about we're in double-digit unemployment. Well, Black and brown, especially our men, they were like 40, some crazy number, 40% unemployment at one point in time. We understand it, and we will get through this. And we're going to be the teachers to help others navigate this and get through this. I know we jokingly will say, oh, we made a way out of no way. God will make a way out of no way. Well, that is true. They only with us being the vehicle to do that.
Thank you.
Well, I would just add on the homeschooling, this is Regina again, that it's the fear because you're hesitant. Oh, I'm not a teacher. But I found my child was also would help guide the course, what I was going to teach. She fell in love with Africa, I had a picture book, one of those cocktail books you put on your table, all about Africa and gorgeous pictures of the tribes and the golden stools. She saw the golden stool, and we ended up spending about 4 months just studying Africa and our heritage there, because that's where her interests were. And she was only like about 7 when we did that. And she was reading any and everything. I was trying to find stuff. You didn't have Google like you have it now, but there were lots of games and things. And I found that making her whatever she was studying, making it a challenge. And the games I found were like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? That helped her geography. A globe that she could spin. I bought a globe so she could spin it, and we point on a spot on the globe, and that's what we might study that day. You don't have to be, hard and fast. You're able to follow your child's interest. And as long as, they are able to, at the end of the year, or I did connect with a homeschool where I could go like every 6 to 8 weeks and show them her progress. She was able to take any of the state tests, didn't have to, but they begged, please let her take it because we want her to bring up the scores of everybody else. So, you just have to kind of follow your own instinct and follow your child. You'll be surprised that they'll lead you some places that you didn't even think about studying. Like, oh, okay, well, that's what we'll do.
That is the Montessori philosophy, too. Follow the child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
exactly. That way it's not
absolutely.
Foolish.
Hi, my name is Betty. Hi, my name is Betty. I'm from Marion, Alabama, and I recently pulled my boys out of the school system. I had 2 11-year-old boys, and I pulled them out of the school system here, and I started to homeschool. And it seems like people are under the impression that the parent has to sit with the children to teach them. But that's not necessarily the case. There are programs out there where there's actually a teacher present, and your kid goes before the computer, and just like if they were at school time, and there's an actual teacher teaching them. Mm-hmm. And they also have programs where they have activities outside of the school where those kids can go that are all homeschooled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, absolutely. There is a...
Really?
Yes.
Yeah,
I do community out there.
Yeah, I do K-12, and I do Alabama virtual, where they actually they send you the computer, they send you all the lab work supplies and stuff that the children need, and they go on and at 8 in the morning, and they finish somewhere like around 1. But there's actually a teacher there that they are sitting there that can see the children.
Wow.
I mean, there are other programs where they're not. There's no teacher, but if your child needs a teacher, then you seek one of the schools that offer a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And one of the things that I found with homeschool children is that they can self-teach, and they become very independent in their learning. And, it almost becomes like, self-guided, as my sister pointed out. So our children will get what they need. We just have to breathe, please. Let's breathe through this and share resources like what Betty just shared and what my sister just shared, and we're going to be okay. And if it means that folks like Miss Kay, who understands that Montessori thing real good, develops a online course, a connection for preschoolers and making it fun, and joining with other, preschoolers and early educators, we're going to get through this, and it's going to be stellar. I truly, truly believe that. This is going, one of my ministers that I listen to a lot is Eldrin Morrison. He's out of Shaw Memorial outside of Atlanta. and he was in New Haven for many years, and he said, always look for the mercy in the moment because it's always there. So, and then the Chinese proverb says, out of crisis comes opportunity. There are many, many opportunities. And the definition of crisis, the old school definition of crisis, is a testing time. So we are in a testing time. And our history tells us that we are already all right. Like I say, we have the tools, we have the wherewithal, and we're going to come together as community, and we're going to be okay. We're going to thrive in all of this.
And I think Betty touched on the other fear that people have if they homeschool, which is about the socialization, which is why I did join with the charter school, but I checked them out, and they had the library, which had a reading program. The kids got rewarded for the number of books. They got tested on those books as well to make sure they comprehended them. They had a space program that my daughter, normally you can't get into if you're in public school until your 5th or 6th grade. She went as a 2nd grader. She had to sit on a phone book so she could reach the computer. She could type. She was the fastest typer in her class. And, so you want to look at what kind of things they offer for that socialization so that they get those special things. She did a film class at 3rd grade, making a film. She wrote the script for her team. So, you get these extra things so that you might not get until you're high school. Or you have to be in a special high school in order to get a film class where you actually get to write, direct, do sound, everything. So I'm just saying, socialization. And you can still, my daughter still did gymnastics. She did ice skating. She did, all the normal dance class, all the normal activities little kids like to do.
Absolutely.
So I had one other follow-up question, Yatura, on the Zola program. Will there be a certification for the counselors and clinicians that go through that so that if you're looking for someone, you've had that loss, like you say, of a job or a limb, a body part, or death in your family or anything like that, so we'll know that person has gone through it and how we'll be able to find them? Will they be listed if they've completed your class, like on your website or anything?
They will get a certificate of completion, and they will also earn, right now they will earn CEUs. I will, once we get a critical mass, there'll be a monthly supervision group that they will connect with, and I will maintain a list of those individuals who have completed the program. So if anybody wanted to contact me on my website, I would be able to tell them that they have a certificate of completion. It's not a certifying board. I'm not that. But you will get a certificate of completion to say that you'll be able to put on your wall to say that you completed the Zola experience training. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for that question because I forgot to say that. Thank you.
Ooh. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Lady Katora?
Is the Zola experience only for clinicians, or is it for any one of us who, like myself, my name is Elsie, and I am not an educator or a teacher, or I'm just person is interested in everything.
Okay. Well, it's really for people like pastoral counselors, providers. There are people out there that are running groups. And I just say that it really, because of the nature of what you're doing, that you really need somebody trained that can support you through that and would know when to refer you to a higher level of care. Because we carry experiences forever on the emotional side. We can intellectualize ourselves through basically anything. But what keeps us stuck is the unresolved emotional piece. And the way that the curriculum is developed, it is to shift you emotionally so that you can come out, release some of that. And, in our experience, we've had to make some referrals for individuals to get, for them to, connect them with the therapist so that they can continue to work through it. But we do recommend that there's a support network and that there's someone that understands and can, make some general assessment of the person's mental status. So yeah. It really is designed for clinicians. And, when we did the groups in the past, everybody was a licensed professional. And it served the clients well. It's really all about what is going to be most impactful for the client to support them through this journey. Okay. But who knows, Elsie? I may develop it so that a training so that to help providers. We say providers, and that can be an outreach worker or anybody else, to be able to do the Zola experiment. So you've given me another idea.
Ooh, lovely.
That's what the table is all about.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Katura, question.
Ma'am. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned how we as people of color don't seek out mental health help.
Say that again. I had a 7-year-old come in the room. Go ahead. Say that again.
That we as African Americans, brown people, color, poor people, don't really seek out assistance with our mental health. We don't seek therapy unless it's mandated from the court system, or if, like we were talking earlier about, a teacher points out a child's behavior and recommends that the child and the parents seek out mental health. Is there any data, statistics that gives us that kind of information about how many families are actually recommended from the court systems, education systems, versus those that just come on their own because they recognize that they need help, or somebody self-identifies, or another family member? Is there any statistics about that show?
Yes, the court system maintains those kind of numbers as to who, like probation, parole, maintains that. Facilities would maintain that as well. Like that would be one of the statistics that I would maintain as initially as triage supervisor, and then as the assistant clinical director of, what were the referral sources, and we would also note, what was the precipitating factor for them to come to treatment, to be referred for treatment. And, I used to, people usually go into treatment not because they see the light, but because they feel the heat. There's some, we know that there's something not right. But we sometimes, it's like, well, I'm not going. And we have to think about the fact that coming to seek treatment in our community is the last resort, because we will exhaust our natural resources. We'll go to family first. We'll go to friends. We'll go to church to seek guidance from pastoral counseling and clergy. We will even take the geographical cure, thinking that, they may be schizophrenic in New Haven, but maybe they won't be schizophrenic in Alabama. We're going to send them down to Big Mama's house and see what happens. And then, we discover, well, they're just as, they're struggling no matter where they are. Okay, so generally by the time they come to somebody like me, I am the last resort. And so I tried to teach clinicians that I was training that you have to understand that particularly when, I think it's across the board, but particularly when Black and brown and poor people come to us, we are their last resort. So they're coming, these families are coming to us with a sense of shame because they couldn't get it together. All of these things that they tried, they couldn't make an impact. They're coming to us with guilt, or maybe I should have looked to them sooner. Maybe if I had done this, then he wouldn't be like that. They're coming to us embarrassed because they used their natural resources and the natural resources did not work. So they're coming to us emotionally loaded. And it sometimes may project as hostility. It may project as anger. And so we have to, don't take it personally. Let's try to find out what's on the other side of anger. So the other side of anger is fear. Okay, if we talk metaphysically, the other side of anger is fear. So when someone is coming to you with that energy, we have to kind of step back and do what MI does. And I say, we've been doing MI for centuries, for decades, to allow them the opportunity to have a choice. Everybody wants choice. So whether they're mandated from probation or whatever, the court, or they're mandated from family that says, okay, we used to get a surge after every major holiday. One would be, okay, you've disrupted Thanksgiving dinner for the last time because you were drunk and you threw up on the turkey. So we're done now. Okay. So whatever their mandate is, nobody wants the have to. So when you ask me about statistically, who comes to treatment, we have done research and we've talked about it. And it really doesn't matter whether they're mandated to treatment or they come voluntarily to treatment. The research that we did at the clinic was that it's the engagement. If we can engage them in treatment and retain them, and that's how I got into the whole ear acupuncture thing. The NADA protocol is probably one of the best tools that we have to engage and retain individuals in treatment. It's a natural reliever of stress. Once we put those 5 needles in each ear, it relieves the stress. They don't even have to talk about why they're there, who sent them there, or nothing else. So when I got connected with Dr. Smith, Michael O. Smith, God rest his soul, at the Lincoln Recovery Center in the Bronx, New York, it was like this gift. And, in the back of the workbook, you can get in touch with the National Acupuncture Detox Association if you want to be trained. And you can be trained to do this, and you don't have to be a professional. You don't have to be a professional clinician. You can be an outreach worker. You can be, a case manager. You don't necessarily have to be a nurse or a therapist. And that's the beauty of the NADA protocol. And we have this whole grassroots movement. It came out of the demands of the Black Panther Party and the Young Lords converging on Lincoln Hospital to knowing that, looking, we want treatment for our community and we don't want no drugs. That was the underlying impetus for the NADA protocol. Wow. To introduce that into the Bronx. The individuals coming to the Bronx, they would journey to the Bronx to get these needles in their ear. And initially that clinic was a methadone maintenance clinic. But within a 5-year period, nobody was on any chemical. They were coming every day, walking past the coke den, the whatever den, at the end of a dead-end street off of Willis Avenue in the Bronx. So, it's that kind of thing, that kind of grassroots thing that'll make the difference. And like I said, it doesn't matter. We just need to engage and retain people. And that is one way. And for our community, they don't want to talk in the beginning. We have to get past the trust factor. Are you going to air my dirty laundry in the community? And me being a therapist of color, I had to ask the same question that I asked all of my clients that would sit in front of me. How do you feel about me being a woman as your therapist? I'm not going to assume that everybody's going to be real happy about me sitting in front of them. How do you feel about me being a woman? How do you feel about me being a woman of color? How do you feel about, any of those things? And, probably one of my long-term clients was this African-American woman, and she was referred to me for individual therapy. And it was one of those situations like Antoine Fisher. She came every week, said not a word. She wouldn't speak to me. She wouldn't talk to me, and I was okay with silence. I'm good with silence. And then, when her time was up, I said, okay, your session is done. I'll see you next week. And she said, okay. And she would come back, and she was like, why aren't you making me talk? And I was like, you'll talk when you're ready. You'll know when you're ready. But it's that kind of trust building that we have to have for people in our community. And the joining every week. These are like things that black and brown people we need. They need to know, because every week I have to rebuild the trust. So when people would come and they would say things like, they didn't want to talk. Like my European clients would start talking as soon as I opened the door, and we'd do the walk to my office. They would start talking. My brothers and sisters, they wouldn't have nothing to say till their door was closed, and it was just us. And then they would say things like, like when we're doing the whole joining thing, like what's going on? And it's like, my grandmother, she had a stroke last week. I'm really stressed. I didn't use, but, I thought about what you said or whatever. The next week, when they showed up, what did I say to them? How's your grandmother? Mm-hmm. And those are those little things that mean the most to you being able to engage and retain clients and treatment. Those little things, not those big things. They don't want to know about evidence-based practice. That's for the clinician to know. They want to know, do you see me? Mm. Can you validate me as a human being? Can you touch me? And that's what the ear acupuncture does. They would come in and I would give them ear acupuncture. And the mere fact that I would touch their ears would say, I'm not untouchable because I'm a recovering addict. I'm not untouchable because I've done some horrible things prior to coming here. You see me. You can touch me. Mm. So it's those little things that we do that sometimes have to be taught, that connects us to them and lets them know that we see them, that we validate them as a human being, and that we're starting off with a clean slate. I'm not going to judge you because you stole something, that you robbed something, that you whatever prior to coming into my session. I just want to support you so that when you leave here, you'll think about the next right thing that you want to do.
Mm. Well, I know we are leaning toward, we're beyond 10:30, but I do have one more question. If someone else doesn't have one, I will forego mine because I could ask questions all night long. And I know there's at least 17 people on this line, and most of you haven't said anything. So I'm going to forego my question so that one of you can take one, or I'm just going to jump on in. Don't like the silence. This is 2 hours of really, really good meat, vegetable, bread, salad. We've got a whole full meal course going on here, so I don't want to steal from anyone who has a question. So please, if you have one, let's go ahead and ask now. You've already been on the phone now for 2 hours. Okay, again, I don't like silence, so here's my question.
Okay.
Hey, it's like popcorn. You have to sort of do it. So one of the things that I've heard over and over and over again on this call is the term engaged or engagement or engaged. And so that is, I have to go right back to education because that's where I'm coming from. And one of the New Haven public schools in particular put out a draft for how they would go back to school. And one of the segments within the draft, and I'll be happy to send it to anyone that wants it. If you just text me or email me, I will be happy to send you the whole document because it's probably going to disappear soon. But anyway, inside of it, there is pretty much the framework for how we can matriculate back to school, but it's more focused on what to do, like what to do in terms of cleanliness, what to do in terms of maintenance, facilities, how even to talk to children so that you don't trigger anything crazy or anything out of the ordinary, how to ask about their day, like little things that they should have been doing all along if they weren't. So now they have this document that's 100 pages filled with things like this. And what is, hold on one second. What is not, I'm not going to say it's missing, but there's a segment in it that speaks to disengage youth. And all I've been hearing tonight was, so it's our job to engage the person who wants to change. Our job is to help this person be focused or present. All of those things point to engage. So what does the disengaged student look like? And if, in fact, there is such a thing, how can a child be responsible for his or her own personal engagement?
Well, first of all, I don't think there is a such thing as a disengaged client or a disengaged child, regardless of where they're crossing the threshold. I think that it's the onus on the professional person in the room to find that space where they can engage the person, that child or that client. And, the example that I gave of the woman that came for many weeks and chose not to say anything. I was engaging her, and engagement really is a matter of building trust. The system has to understand that families don't trust where information goes. If I truly tell you what is going on in my house, are you going to call DCS because you don't understand my family dynamics and that they sound very different from yours? Or where is this information going? So the onus is really on us to develop that sense of trust with that child or with that adult so that they trust me enough to engage with me. So I don't, when clinicians would come and say that, Miss So-and-so, she's really resistant. She's not engaging in treatment at all. He's not doing this, that, or the other thing. And my only question would be, using the Gestalt intervention, is how are you like that? How are you not engaging with Miss So-and-so? Are you, what I'm saying? So the onus isn't on that other person. Right. That other person is, all they're saying to you when it appears to be resistance, quote unquote, or disengagement, silence, quote unquote, it's, can I trust you with me? Are you going to reject me? That's what that looks like. And so the only thing that we can do as clinicians is to, one, be consistent, and to want to offer avenues for them to trust us enough to self-disclose. And oftentimes, as therapists and as clinicians, we're asking people to self-disclose a bunch of stuff at a very early stage in the engagement process. And then we want to label them. Okay, so you're going to come to me. This is your first visit. I'm going to ask you about your sexual history. Have you ever been, sexually abused, raped, blah, blah, blah. Who talks about that in the first session? Nobody. And you would think there was something wrong with somebody if you met them for the very first time and they sat down and they say, Trina, I was raped when I was 12. You would look at them people like, oh, my God, like a boundaryless wonder.
You would be surprised.
Exactly. So we have to think about that and allow them, give them permission to talk or not talk. Frame it so that you can, if there's anything that I ask you that you choose not to answer, it's all okay and it'll have no bearing on anything. And I guarantee you, once you say that, the floodgates open up because you've said to them, you can trust me with your information because you've given that person permission not to say. Okay. So the onus will be on teachers to learn how to engage and really to learn how to get these students to trust them enough to talk to them. It's no longer that I'm the teacher, you sit down, you're the student, and let's keep it moving. These children are coming back to school having been in some serious home environments, and they're saying that domestic violence statistics are off the chain during this quarantine time. Yeah. So children are seeing and experiencing things that they are given the carnal rule for unhealthy family systems. And in family therapy, we say there's no such thing as a dysfunctional family. All families function. They may not function in the healthiest way, but every family functions. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to ask them, the number one rule for those families is don't talk, don't trust. Okay? Those are the two things that are spoken. Don't talk, don't trust. And the third thing is don't feel. Don't allow your emotional self to feel. So in that sense, that's what's coming into these classrooms. So now you've got to build a trusting relationship to give them permission to talk, to feel first, to trust, and then to talk.
Well, so then who are we talking to? Or who are we categorizing when we say disengaged? Are we saying that now when I'm using that buzzword, it's coming straight out of back to school thought. So I'm not thinking about disengagement in terms of the overall mental health or overall education, but more of a buzzword that they're using to write these bogus, and I know I'm on a recorded line, but, to write these bogus, that's a school pieces of paper. That's all they are. It's like a guideline for how you clean the school, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And so the only segment in these documents that speak to students is speaking to those they consider disengaged. And they're not, just like you said, there's no such thing. There's no such thing. Mm-hmm. So how in the world are we going to take the children or the parents of the children who somehow didn't get the Chromebook, somehow missed the iPad delivery, somehow never, ever have looked at a teacher, a classroom, a cohort in the gym since March 12th, 2020, and here we are at July 2nd, and we're on our sort of third summer. So when we know there's research that points to what happens when our kids are not engaged, even over the summer. Mm-hmm. So they're using those same words pretty much. I know I think that there's so much, not so much I can say.
So I'm hoping, I haven't looked at that document, but I'm hoping that there is, that they're encouraging parental engagement. parental contact to come up with whatever their structure is going to be to bring these children back. And the onus is on the system. The onus is not on the families, on the parents. So, we have, as community people, those parents that don't have a voice, we're going to have to give them the voice. We're going to have to be the voice to say, the people like me and Kay, and say, look, through no fault of this child, your reality is this child is coming back, and they didn't have a tablet, and they didn't have this, they didn't have that. They've been, looking at cartoons since March.
Or worse, they got the Chromebook and they got the iPad, and now they're able to communicate with children in other countries on these video games right in your house. Like it's amazing. It's out of control.
Right, but they're going to have to assess where each student is at. I mean, I don't see a client without assessment. I need to do a psychosocial assessment to figure out where am I starting. So
we should do that every year, right? This is not new.
Exactly. And I got to reassess minimally every 6 months. I have to reassess every 6 months. The educational system it's got to change at some point in time, because they have been given free reign to have no product outcome. You can go through 12 years of school and not know how to read, write, or think independently, and nobody holds them accountable. I was dealing with people that were in recovery from addiction and mental health, and they were saying to me, what's my outcome? How long are these people staying clean and sober? A good outcome was 3 months clean. It's like, really? You're gonna hold me accountable for that?
Right.
And that's a choice. Whereas you have people in the educational system, the accountability is from somebody that's on the outside looking in. It's like, what's your accountability? And then they're saying, well, the parents have to do their part. Well, and so if the parent does not, what if the parent isn't capable? What if the system is, like I said earlier, what if the system is designed? And I remember when my children were young, that latchkey kid thing, they thought that was a thing. I couldn't even believe, why is that a thing? Children coming home to an empty house. That is the craziest. She's a latchkey. They're latchkey kids. Well, there's something wrong with that. But we tolerated that. Some of us. It was like I did the very best that I could with what I had to make sure that somebody was home to receive my children.
Right. Well, I just wanted to say, this is Kay again. I just wanted to say there are enough of us on this line from New Haven who can have access to the documents that Patrina is referring to, and it is in draft form, which means and tomorrow makes 1 week that it has been made available. So being that it is in draft form, we have the ability to present to that Tiger team that was created to design this remapping back to school, whatever it's called. And so we need to either do a real quick turnaround and tell them that we don't like some of the language, if we want the disengaged youth language out of that document. We can do that, and I only speak of that from experience when we started talking about positive youth development 20-something years ago, and the language changed. and
right.
we were able to do that. So here we have this opportunity because we're having this discussion at this roundtable here in New Haven. There's a document 1 week old as of maybe 15 minutes. 15 minutes from now, it will be 1 week old. We have a window that we can, those of us who, if there's 7 or 8 of us on this line from New Haven, then that may be something that we need to do, and that we have this opportunity to do that. And I know Trina is talking with Dr. Tracy in regard to doing some work this summer. If that means we take that opportunity, talk to these parents who are quote unquote parents of these disengaged young people, I'm using this word facetiously, okay? Then that's what we need to do. And I'm just throwing that out there because, I like tasks and I like ideas. So here we are.
Well, I have actually started talking to Dr. Tracy about some of how the writing goes. But they're on this task force. It only takes about 7 of us to get involved. It doesn't take a whole lot, but it does take at least 7 of us on the same page. And I know we've got more than 7 of us on this line, whether you're from New Haven or not. I know the last time I checked, there were 17 of us without any marketing, without any press release. This is just us around a small table sharing one to another. And it's just a matter of time before we decide to start doing the press releases and doing the ads and the marketing so more people can sit at this table. But right now we have a chance, we have an opportunity to really, I have Dr. Tracy's cell phone number. So I go back and forth with her on a lot of different terms because words mean something. And how we articulate what we're trying to do means something. And in my opinion, that draft, how do you come up with a draft for a new fiscal year? The fiscal year just changed yesterday. You guys have been sitting at home, and I know I'm on a recorded line. You've been sitting at home since March 12th. Why is this document a draft with 100 of you on a task force? 100. 100.
Wow.
And I can rewrite it all in a day. Like, before tomorrow, I can rewrite that whole document and make them all choke. And I know, oops, see? Y'all got me on the recorded line. I try to be quiet, but you all are too quiet, and we don't like quiet on the line because these calls are repurposed. The purpose for these live calls is so that we have shareable information for Black, brown, and poor folks. And so once we transcribe these calls, this one alone, we've been on the phone now for 2.5 hours. We can take just what happened tonight and change the world. So imagine last week's session, the week before that, the week before that. Everyone who has shown up to this round table, especially those of you old enough to sit in the hot seat, you can't imagine what God is getting ready to do with what happened during these sessions. And it's bigger than us. It's bigger than me. It's way bigger than me. So I'll sit in the background forever, but I don't like silence. So if you guys are here, don't just come to eat. Come to share food. Come to share your bread. Break bread so that we can be one. Like one of the things I heard Lady Couture say was that we really need to share the wealth pretty much. Like it's all of our responsibility. Not just one person, but all of us need to figure it out. And until we do that, we're just going in circles. Everything that's happening now, there's nothing new under the sun. There's always been bullying. There's always been school. There's always been some kind of teacher. There's always been some kind of tutor. There's always been some kind of therapist. There's also always been some kind of leader who had the wisdom. And there's nothing new under the sun. Racism is not new. None of the things that we're dealing with is new. What is new is the climate that we're in. We are in an election year, and they're not going door to door to find our parents, but in 20 days, they're going to be door to door telling you to go vote.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're going to hear me get upset. You know, hear my voice get ugly. Because you all going to be talking about voting, but we can't figure out what to do with our children. Somebody who's already voted in, the one that's already there. So we already voted. We voted last time. Can we get them to do something before the new vote? I think we can.
It just sounds like you need to put the candidates up if you want, maybe one of you ladies there in New Haven, and then you'll have that school board that you want. It'll be comprised of your peers. So vote, but vote in who you want to vote. Don't vote in just whoever got the money and went out there. Just get the word out. Hey, I'm running. Don't have a lot of money, but this is what I believe, and go for it. Like that brother that almost upset Amy McGrath in Kentucky. Nobody really knew him. He'd been sounding around, and then all of a sudden he found his footing, and he gave her a run for his money. If he'd had a little longer time, he probably would have beat her. So you got to pick who you want to support.
But what did come out of that is leverage.
Yes.
Sometimes that is the outcome, is that you have enough of a critical mass supporting you that you have leverage that will change the outcome of the election.
Okay, so here's one more thought for me.
And that's if we want to still be part of that system, but, I don't know.
Right. I mean, here's one more thought, and then I'm going to hand it over to Kay because we are far spent. But with all of what's been said tonight, and I mean, this has been some real good, like, prime rib with the lobster tail on the side, some asparagus, and some pumpernickel bread. Sounds like Outback, like a meal at the Outback. That's like one of my restaurants. It's just so good. Everything about it is so good. But I have to just real quick, if we are really trying to make change or move or just even the dialogue is enough because we are in enough different cities and states that we know we can share the information. That's where I'm more interested in knowing that. Those that do show up to the table, there's 17 of us on this line, and I know there are, and yet only 5 of us have been able to ask a question or interact. Then where are the rest of us? And are you going to share the information with people who need it? Like people who don't know that all you really need is 7 letters. People go around trying to get signatures of hundreds of thousands of signatures. They're running around with their clipboard. They're going door to door for whatever they're passionate about. When all they really need is 7 letters to the mayor. When are we going to share the information that matters? And again, somebody said something about both the people in you want. Well, somebody wanted the ones that's in there. That's why they're there. They're there because somebody wanted them. Somebody voted for them. The Bushes own the voting machine. How do I know that? Because I ran one churches here in Charlotte that delivered them all early for the last election. It was a presidential election, so it was probably 15, 16, something like that, when Obama was out. And, that's how I found out the Bushes own all of the machines that do the voting. How is that even lawful? How do we even allow something like that to happen? And then we want the vote to matter. Like, how is it possible?
Wow.
Lack of knowledge. People don't even know.
We don't. My point.
Asking questions, right.
But how do we use our drum and disseminate such information? And then we would have to then hold folks accountable. I think that is probably the thing that our community does not do. And I say more for us because the laws aren't designed for us. So, but all of a sudden, and it's been historical, our vote is critical. But we don't hold anybody accountable. They give us these platitudes and, it's about jobs, and they keep saying middle class. But they don't understand that, if in the city of Boston that the average black person's net worth is $8, they are not middle class.
No.
So you're not talking to a city of people whose net worth is $8.
Right.
So we have to hold people accountable. And when they come for these debates and for these town meetings, we got to ask the hard questions. You need to be real concrete. That's been my question to the DNC. I told you they put me on. I think they done cut me off, but I mean, every time they want to send me a survey and ask me for some money, I ain't giving you no money, and I'm unsure about everything. And then you want my comments. I'm like, what is the platform for black and brown people? If my vote is so crucial, what is the platform, Joe Biden? Has anybody seen it? Does anybody know? It's not. I keep writing these people. It's not about anybody but Trump. That's not what this is about.
Can I interject?
What is the agenda? And I'm not asking at this point. Like I said, I'm past Fannie Lou Hamer. She was tired. I'm exhausted. So it's not about it's not about an ask. I don't want to ask you for anything. This is what you know what the situation is. I've had more people of European heritage call me up and tell me, I'm sorry, I'm this, I'm a racist. I didn't know. Well, and it's like I just didn't listen. And my next question is, and what do you choose to do differently? It's not my voice that needs to be heard. They look at me and pat me on the head. It's your voice. You're the catalyst for this change. Because regardless of who's in the White House, our unemployment rate seems to be a little bit stable. Our job opportunities and you having your knee on my neck does not change, and then you're telling me that this is a level playing field. You and I both know that is crap, and I don't want to play the game anymore. I'm done. My whole impetus is trying to heal my people. I want to heal my people so we can move forward. Amen. And we can't even look at our past until we come to a place of healing, like right now. Mm-hmm. And we're feeling a little bit better right now. And then I can begin to get creative and think about what do I want my tomorrow to look like.
You asked the question.
We have a number of things. Go ahead.
This is Marilyn Davis. This is the first I've interjected, although I've listened to the entire conversation. Excellent conversation, sisters. The question you asked about Joe Biden, and I don't even mean him specifically, but I mean the specific place that we always find ourselves. And it was the same thing with Obama. I felt so sorry for him, and God blessed us twice. He gave us an opportunity twice with Obama, okay? That was unheard of. That was just God saying, okay, the first 4 years you sat around waiting him to be the big black hope that he would just swoop in and make things better for black people when you knew he was fighting the system himself, or they were fighting him, I should say. The second time around, we should have learned that not only was it something he could do himself, but we never went to him with what we wanted. We have a problem as black, brown, and marginalized people of expecting people to know what it is we want. They don't listen to us. We don't have a voice. So we have to put them in a place where when we do force them to hear us, that we know what it is that we're demanding. The riots right now we've seen it for 50 years, okay, or more. All right, we're in almost the same place. They give us, some consolation prizes, and they pat us on the head and they send us away.
this generation, I mean, in Minnesota, they've been marching and riding that system there for 32 days, because they are demanding the officers that murdered Breonna Taylor be arrested. They're just not going to give up. This is what they're saying. Mm-hmm. So all over the country, all over this nation, all over the world, people are marching for one common cause: ours. So now we have to find a voice that we've never really had. Not on the aggressive side. We've always been on the passive side of things, expecting. We've always been reactionary. This is the time when now we have to go out and we have to get together and we have to make our demands. This time the cry is from protest to policy. We have got to change policy. We have got to get the Constitution and pull it apart. We have got to sit down on the seven kingdoms of entertainment, medical, family, religion, finances, government, and we have to get key people in those key spots, and we have to start framing what it is that we as black people need on the seven kingdoms of life. People are always looking for one leader. You know, we don't need one leader. We need to move as a body. We need to take the intellectuals and the woke people and the professional people and the people that are thought leaders and come together in some form or some fashion, because if we don't do it now while we have their feet to the fire, and this man gets back into office with no limitations on him, no threat of having to deal with not coming in for another 4 years, but being in for another 4 years, the PTSD that black people have will just be off the chart. You know, as a culture, we are suffering post-traumatic stress syndrome. I've been saying this to people all the time, and they've been looking at me like there's something wrong with me. Post-traumatic stress syndrome is not just for the military that are deployed and see the scavenges of war. We have been living in war since 1619 in this country, every single day. It's 401 years and counting if we don't do something about it. So from the school system that you're talking about, up into the politics, to education, to all these other phases of life, the seven kingdoms, we are going to have to start making our demands. We're going to have to change our language and our narrative. We're going to have to write our own story, to tell our own story, because we have a story. We're going to have to tell people, no, slavery is not black history. We're going to have to stop dealing with black history for 30 days in February. Okay, I heard this woman sit here for an hour and some minutes talk about her family life history. That's her story. We as a culture have a story, and it is not narrowed down to 30 days in February, and it is not narrowed down to the nation's history, America's history of slavery. We are not slaves. We've never been slaves. We were raped and robbed and pillaged and stolen and forced here into a system of slavery. And if we don't start changing the way we look at things, and if we don't start changing our language, we're speaking death, we're not speaking life. Anytime that we refer to each other as blacks instead of black people, that makes my skin crawl, because every single thing they've done since they brought us here was try to dehumanize us. We are not blacks, we are black people. And if we don't start treating one another like that, then they have no reason to. We have to stand up and make them stand up and look at us, instead of us looking at them, being named by them, being dictated by them, being subservient to them. It's all about us. This is a season when they talk about self-care, we as a culture have to start dealing with self-care on a mass culture. We can no longer be subservient and demand to be who we are. First of all, do we know who we are? You know, do we know where we come from?
Yeah, most don't know their history, and I agree.
We come from West Africa. Do we know that? We should know that. We come from West Africa. Mm-hmm. That's where most of us come from, West Africa. And they brought us right across the water, and they dropped people off in Georgia and Virginia and Maryland. And that's where it all started over here. You know, we have to go back. I remember the Black Panthers used to come to our community when I was I don't know, early teenager, I guess. And we had them in our community. We had a neighborhood house, and we would all gather with them at the neighborhood house, and they would drum, they would feed us, and they would tell us our stories, and they would tell us who we were. I look back at those times now, and I cherish those moments when those brothers and sisters did that. When I was in California, a young single mother, they would meet us on the bus stops at the close of day. There would never be a black woman that would pull into a bus stop from work, and they would not be the brothers there to escort her home. They started the WIC programs, women and infant children. They started testing. They started free lunches. What else did they start? They started several things. You know, so somebody said, you said anger was on the other side of fear or vice versa. The fact that fear, and I figured this out, they fear us finding out who we are. Because we were the first. We were the ones that had everything, that started everything, that taught them everything, and they will not rest with us finding that out. We are the seed of civilization, math, science, architecture, languages, writing, all of that, astrology, astronomy, all of that was us. All of that was us. You know, so if we don't relay that to our children right now, why God has us shut in, I tell you, I would pull the plug on every single thing in the house that's not my voice with my children. This is the time we've all dreamed about when we were working and they were at school that we wish we had time to teach them. And we wish we had, and we wished and we wished and we wished. And God has given that to us, and we want to sit around and whine and cry and complain because we want to go out and get our hair done and our nails done and go dining and whining. That's not the time for this. When we come out of this thing, we better be the best black people that we have ever been since we left the motherland.
Amen.
I mean it. I mean it. I was asleep, but now I'm woke, literally. I told Katrina, don't even mention me. I'm in school, I've been writing papers since 3, 4, and 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm exhausted. But that's why
now that's the wisdom for the hour. Go ahead.
That's right. That's right. The other thing that I want, I think the other thing that we need to understand is that we're not in a post-traumatic situation. In order for us to be in a post-trauma situation, we have to be removed. This is their words. We would have to be removed from any aspect of the trauma for no less than 6 months. As black and brown people and marginalized people, that has not happened.
At all.
It has not happened. So we need to, I framed my treatment I come from a trauma-based treatment, that everybody walking in my office had a history of trauma, whether it was from the culture of being a person of color. And all of my clients were marginalized, and nobody more marginalized than an addict, and nobody more marginalized than an addict with mental health, with stigma and all those things. And then when you add the layer of homelessness, you add a layer of poverty, you add a layer of ethnicity on top of that, my crew was dispensable. So none of us, I don't care whether you're sitting in a boardroom or you're sitting in a WIC office, it does not matter. We have not been removed from trauma. We get micro trauma and macro trauma every day. Every day. And so, they just put in the diagnostic and statistical manual that racism is a mental illness, because they have done research and knowing that dealing with racism every day, it impacts your entire self, from your mental to your physical. It tears you apart. That's why we have all of these autoimmune issues going on with the lupus and the asthma and the heart diseases and autoimmune But we got heart disease, we got suicides, we got all of these things from constant stress. Constant stress. So for us, we have to do the self-care. And I keep saying that, you know, we've got to do a lot of what the sister said, but I think we're going to have to do it, circle our wagon and let us get focused. And then tell them, look, this is what needs to happen. But when you are stressed and when you don't know where your next meal is coming from, you really don't have time to dismantle the Constitution. You don't even have time to go to the public hearing of the politician. So then it appears that we don't care. But just like Trina said, you get 7 people to show up in a legislator's office, and they're going to pay attention.
Katura, this is Rita. Hey, Rita.
Hi, Rita.
How are you doing? I just wanted to chime in on Biden and his program. If you go to his website, he has Lift Every Voice. I haven't read it all yet, but he has a plan. And for me, reading it, every time I come to something that
I don't believe it's us. I think he's riding off Obama.
Every time I come to something that I think that he should consider, before I send him anything, there is an area for notes, even though I sent a letter. I sent it to him with the money for him to consider these thoughts on what his program is presenting. And we have to keep in mind, too, that the President of the United States, he picks the Supreme Court judges, and he also picks all the federal judges. Now, 45 has been in, and he's already picked almost 25% of the federal judges.
200 were seated, yes, confirmed.
Yes. Right.
Qualified or not.
And for no other reason other than to get 45 out so that we can pick judges that will not put us back in chains. Because these judges have his point of view. And they think less of us, and they would love to turn back so much more than just our voting rights. So we cannot get tired, because they sure not tired of trying to push us back, okay? So we cannot get tired, all right? And my mother used to say when I was little that people stay up at night to, kind of fuck with you, And she say fuck with you, but she had a word for it that wasn't a cuss word. She was Christian.
We got the gist, though, Rita. We know where you're going, girl.
Right. But
I like Rita.
That really became clear to me when I looked at this documentary called Inside Job by Charles Ferguson. Where all of these financial institutions plotted together to do what they did to us in 2008, which caused our community to lose 50% of its wealth. Okay? So we have to participate in the politics, because these representatives, if they're not coming from love for the people that they serve, they are not going to serve us.
That's right. And that's that whole accountability thing. And we just can't give them the vote and they think that that's all that they need to do. We have a responsibility to hold their feet to the fire. Absolutely.
And to keep them accountable, we can't just look at the national election. We sent Obama up there alone. We did not give him what he needed, especially in the 2012 election. Now, going in, he's being the first African-American, black people, whatever term you're using, the first person of color up there. He was not going to be able to just snap his fingers and be like Trump. they would have impeached him on day 2. Matter of fact, if he had been suspected of being involved with Russia, they would have found a way to postpone the inauguration. They'd have figured out something. And you got Mitch McConnell. How many folks is helping to try to get him out? How many people are looking at their local congressional representative? Right. Do you even know who represents your district? And trying to get rid of those people because they're blocking. Right. The Tea Party got their act together and put a whole crap load of those ignorant people in there who don't even know how our government works, don't even know we have 3 equal branches. They think, oh, it's just our branch. Oh, it's just the president's branch. Oh, you know. And so we have to make sure that we go after it at every level, make our vote count, because right now we don't have the money to actually, have any other voice. I mean, other groups can go in. We have the
money, we just don't use the power that we have.
Exactly. We've got the numbers. There's more of us than them, so to speak. We've got to come out.
We got the money. We just don't have the people.
When I say we don't have the money,
a plan. That's what we don't have, a plan.
When I say we don't have the money, I say like Eva Longoria, who went out and got her Hispanic community to raise $30 million and bring it over there to Obama and say, hey, that's why he's talking about the Hispanics and what they need. $30 million came in from one group. We haven't been able to get together like that.
The LBGT, they have a national holiday now. Why? Because they knocked on the door and they imputed him, and this is who we are, and this is what we want, and they wooed him, and he wooed them. We just sat back in the easy chair like turning on the channel. We have been silenced for so long, and when we find our voice, we don't come with demands. When you force yourself at the table, you better have something to say. That's like in the days of the civil rights. We fought them, and they allowed us to fight and demand and kick and scream to throw our money at them so we could eat at their counters. And in the meantime, we forgot the mom and pop stores and the Susie who fed us and Rosewood Sale. We had everything. 100 people don't know this. 121 100% empowered and independent, wealthy communities were destroyed in this country. 121. Back in the day, 121. We didn't have airlines. We had ship lines. We had trucking lines. We had steamliners. We had universities and hospitals and schools and universities. We had it all. And now that they have us in a place where we're afraid to say and do anything, we have got to come out of that. We have got to realize, like the 10 lepers, either we sit here and die or we get our butts up and we go into the city.
I am not afraid, so somebody better get some life insurance on me. And you are all welcome. I'll give you each. Listen, I swear, the only thing I know right now is cry loud and spare not. I don't have any filter. It's over. And so anyone that might find their way to this Urban Academics, call me. You can share some with my kids, but I'll give you my Social Security number. Get at least $500,000 worth of insurance so you could at least share $200,000 with my legacy. Keep the other half for yourself. But they're coming for me because I'm coming for them, and I mean it.
I hear you.
It's got to happen somewhere. If it doesn't happen now, things cannot go back to the old normal. I don't know what the new normal is going to be, but it cannot go back to the old normal. It's particularly for us. It can't. Someone interviewed Agent Orange in the Oval Office the other day, and they were asking him about African Americans, and you know what he said? He said, if you don't remember your history, then you're going to end up going back to it. You know what that says to me?
We're going to put us back in change.
Send me a link to that. I will rip that to shreds.
No, this was on. It's on Facebook. It's a video on Facebook.
I'm not on Facebook.
Well, it was
they kicked me off Facebook with Farrakhan and the rest of those leaders.
Well, what I'm saying is this is where he wants to go with that.
He's already trying to classify Black Lives Matter as a hate group and hate term. Anyone that says it is stating hate.
Yeah,
but that
well,
video
he's
is
going to
on
say
YouTube.
that.
It's on YouTube, that video.
Oh, good.
What's it under, Rita?
Oh, I'll find it tonight because I got till tomorrow to figure out what they're doing with that disengaged child. So I heard my direction, which is I had already started structuring everything around it because that's the only thing I could find that even pointed toward our kids. Mm-hmm. There was nothing there outside of the word disengaged student. There was nothing else. Everything else had to do with masks and gloves and sanitizer and how far to sit the kids and how to structure the tables and how to move it. Everything was facility.
And then when they get
wait, hold on. There's 100 people on the task force, and every single one of them, their salary is at least $180 a year. I already added it up. 100 of them. Anybody? Let me tell you where it says. Just inbox me. I know if you're on this call, I probably already sent you an invite, reminder, something. Respond to that with your email address, and I'm going to send you this draft along with the list of 100. There's 100 people on a task force called the Tiger. Am I wrong, Kay? What they call themselves?
It's in actually that list is in the document itself. It lists all of the names.
Right, but I separated it because now you got to go look for it in the document. You don't have to look for it. I'm going to send it to you.
Thank you, Trina.
I'm going to send it to you. I'm thorough like that. I'm going to send you the document. You don't have to go combing through that document. 100 people are on a task force. While school is out, our children have not been in there since March 12th. There's 100 people, at least, at minimum, who are home, schooling from home. These are administrators, so they're not seeing teachers. They're not seeing students. Mm-hmm. They're not. They're home paid. 100 of them. And I guarantee you, let me tell you something. This is in the way of a backstory. Both of my parents were entrepreneurs, but they were entrepreneurs as gamblers. So for me, I didn't want to be a gambler, right? But I do gamble. Somehow I end up gambling. But not the same way they did. I don't put my money down and I try to bet and all of that. So I bet on what I believe God is saying. Not even a bet. Like, let me take that back. Because, y'all, we on a recorded line, and I got to contend with the Christians. She said you could vote. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you can't bet or not be in the vein of gambling per se. Even churches put their money in the stock market. All of that is still gambling in my view. Now, we can argue about that later. But for right now, we have no time. So I'm willing to stay up all night and finish the document that I have frozen since Tuesday because I didn't know what to do. I called certain clergy. I said, somebody help me. I need somebody to go to the throne of grace because if I keep going the way I'm going, somebody's going to shoot me dead, and I need to know that somebody got a $500,000 million life insurance policy for me and share it with my children. I need to know that before I go the way I feel. I'm telling you, I have to go. It's in my gut. I have to go. And I have to go by tomorrow. I heard Kate say, this document's been out there for a full week tomorrow. I hear that call, okay. So by this time tomorrow, there will be some document, and whoever wants me to share it with them so that you can help me with any typos I might have, anything that I might have wrote too strongly, or I am writing this document before tomorrow morning. I can't sit here. I will not. I was born for this purpose, and it's all policy, all of it. And it doesn't matter which city or state you find yourself in today. If you happen to find yourself on this call today, then I'm just going to open the floodgate. And all I want you to do is honestly just really, really think about not what's happening right now, because you don't know what's happening right now. We don't know what's happening right now. What we know is what happened when we were in middle school, what happened when we were in high school. And for me, in middle school, it was a few teachers who said, there's this new school, there's this collaborative school, and they're picking kids from certain schools, and we think you would make a perfect candidate. Would you consider going to this school? Those were teachers who saw me, who saw something in me that I didn't see. They didn't, and they pointed me in that direction. Once I got to that school, then I found Mr. Rienzi. Then I found Miss Puglia, and I went to Yale University as a junior and a senior in high school. I worked under Dr. Peter Aronson in physiology as a black kid from Church Street South. I knew what Yale University private clubs were when I was 16 years old. And right now today, there are grown-ups that don't even know. Right up above those banks are restaurants that you don't have to pay. You just sort of go, right, you just sort of show up. They tell you they don't even have bills. I was 16 years old, and I grew up in Church Street South understanding how the other half lived, not even knowing how I understood how the other half lived. But it was a teacher. It was somebody in my school who said, go that way, little girl. Hey, you, brown skin, come here. Go that way. Those kids don't mean you no good. Go over there. I promise you, if you go that way. My first job was at Loman back room. They put a little poor girl from Church Street South in the back room at Loman, where they had the furs and the pocketbooks that everybody talks about now. I didn't know what those names were, but something about my little black behind, even if they thought I should be in the back room showing people furs, it meant something to me. It meant something to me because that's how I got to Syracuse University. That's how I got there. Somebody at Loman wrote that recommendation letter. I took a bus from New Haven all the way to Sears, and I had to walk from Sears 2-3 miles to Loman. And I did it every single day that they would have me on their schedule. So I understand, but that's not true for everybody. Everybody does not have that wherewithal. And I promise the ones that don't have it, I'm going to have it for them. I got it. And so we can go on forever. Again, y'all know what time it is? Anybody know what time it is? Don't even want to tell you what time it is.
12:37.
12:32 in California.
It's 12.
Wow.
See what I'm saying? We can go on forever. Everyone on this call is called. Anyone who would be here tonight is supposed to be. We can't stop it if we wanted to, but we have to find a way to cohesively make it happen. And according to Kay, I got about 24 hours. And I'm the one who can do it, and she knows that. I hear you, sir. I hear you call me, and I'm coming. And I've been waiting. I swear, okay, so I had to send something to Dr. Tracy on Thursday. I tried to do that from Phoenix. We got it there the best way we could Thursday, the way she asked me to do it on Thursday. Friday, they dropped this draft. So listen, on Thursday, I was not able to submit the document that I had written to them. So all they got was my sort of memo. That's all they got. 100 of them couldn't come up with anything worth having. And I mean, and they got PhDs. They've been in the school system for as long as I've been in. And I got nothing from that document, nothing, except I could rip it to shreds. That's what I got from it. I don't want to rip it to shreds. What I want to do is open it up so that we can have a dialogue that matters. In the last week, I've had 2 orientations with high achievers. I put out an ad. PMOSH is looking for high achievers. In order for anyone to respond to that, they must believe they are a high achiever. The number of people who responded to that ad in 2 segments with no money, I didn't put any money out for advertising. All I did was send out emails from, students I've already worked with. They would share that information. You would all share it. However, I would send you all. Some of you would share it. That's it. I didn't have anything other than that. But every high achiever that was on that list from 2019-20 responded. And that lets me know that they're not even thinking about summer jobs. We need help, man. If our kids don't have summer jobs, they don't have books. They don't have, how to get into their dorms, the towels, the tissues. Come on. We got to do better than what they're doing for our children. And I don't want to feel like I'm a friend. I know I'm not. I know I'm not.
Not at all.
Ooh, ladies.
Well,
I don't think I'm
and gentlemen,
and
if there's any
that is the note that we need to end on. You're not alone. You are available. We are available, as was spoken in the beginning of this discussion at the opening of it. And so at 12:30, Trina, I want you to know you are not alone.
No.
Lady Katora, you have been such a blessing this evening. I thank God for you. I thank God for everyone that has been here on this call. For those of you who have contributed through your thoughts, through your words, those of you who have received those thoughts and words, may it nourish you. May it give you the strength to go out and do the work that we are talking about, from politics to communication to loving each other, as was spoken here tonight. We thank you. We thank you, Lord, for allowing us to receive, allowing us to give, and allowing us to share the experiences, the knowledge, the wisdom. We just glorify you, Lord. Pray this prayer of peace, joy, and love. As in these days and times, Lord, in this season of silence, in this season of calmness, let us breathe. Let us feel it, let us know it, and let us do it. Because you have given us your promise and you keep them, Lord. And we are so grateful. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus.
Amen. Ashe.
Ashe.
Amen. Ashe.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
I am full. I am energized.
I'm full.
Humbled. I am so many
Thank
things.
you, ladies.
I have lots to put in my journal.
Well, let me just make it plain. There's at least 4 men on this call that didn't say 2 words. So it's not just us women. So I'm going to put you on blast because we need a male's voice too. So don't just come and eat. Come on. Come and serve and eat. Eat, yes. Eat, yes. Yes, we want you to eat. We want you to be good men, good fathers, good husbands, good men. But don't be on this call just lurking.
Well, at least
you have had enough of that.
Thank you.
They've taken the first step and they've come in the door.
Yes.
Oh, I just thought I heard some testosterone. Hold on, who was that? Please speak up loud. I know I just heard some testosterone. Who was it?
No,
Oh, you're not bold now? You're not bold. I know I just heard a man's voice.
They went back undercover, I guess.
Really?
But at least they made the first step and they joined the call.
Okay, all right then.
Don't want to scare anybody away.
If you are asking about me, my name is Copeland.
Hello, Mr. Copeland.
Hello.
It's so good to hear your voice. I'm telling you, there's some. I'm telling you, even in the milieu with children, K through 8, a man. I don't know how to explain this better than I can, but I will tell you that a man in a milieu where there are children trying to figure things out, his presence alone is more than we could pay for. We could never afford it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's like a man in the home.
Take your place. That's what I'm saying. Just take your place. We just need you to take your place.
And we need to start attacking these kids early then, if that's the case.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
How early?
Absolutely.
Once they get to high school, it's a whole other world.
Right.
Sure.
So, Mr. Copeland, how early do you get them? As soon as they come to first grade, kindergarten?
You are who you are by the time you're 3.
I say.
Who said that? You are who you are by the time you're 3.
Me, Kay Harvey.
Hey, I figured that.
At least by the 3rd, 4th grade, I would say, and need to be followed through. Because, if a man thinks he's a man, I like to say they're males thinking they're a man, but they're males. But they need to be attacked early, at least showing some direction. Because now he going to think what he is, and he's not what he is.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there's a difference between a man and a male.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
They just wrote a book about that.
Yes. I can't think of the guy's name.
Right, he was the actor. He was on Queen Sugar.
Yes.
He was on what?
Queen Sugar? Isn't it Queen Sugar?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's true, Just real quick, look at Jill Scott, Mary J. Blige, who's else I want to say, to talk to her, Wendy Williams, and there's more. But, these guys, they think they was running, or they made these ladies, but the ladies were already made. They were made just giving the authority to the man, and they didn't know how to handle it. And then when they got kicked to the curb, it's funny how all the remarks I was reading about, she shouldn't do that, she shouldn't do that, he's raising a kid. He supposed to raise the kid. That's his son. But they think, a lot of people think that he should be rewarded for that. No, he shouldn't. I have a show from Malcolm X. It's called Responsibility. And it says on the back, it's your job to do what you do. Not someone has to pay you or be thankful of you, and so forth. But there's a lot of men, and I worked in a prison, and a lot of men think they're men, and I used to argue with them all the time. You're not. I'm taking care of your kids. You know, 'cause you're not here. You know, father only means that you are taking care of yours, children. That's what it means to be a father. It doesn't mean having babies. Anybody can make a baby. But a father helps raise his children. There's another word for it, fatherhood. It's called responsibility. Malcolm X.
Don't take the responsibility.
So, but like, in regards, I try to volunteer over at Hill House, and I'd be like a fly on the wall watching the kids. And majority of our kids, they're lost. You know, even you try to ask them about college, and they give you a stare in the face. What you talking about? You know. So they used to have the old Urban League when it was on Gulf Street. Ms. Robinson and Wayne, can't think of his last name, but they put that paperwork in front of me and applied to this. I went to the school, they didn't know nothing about it. I knew about A&T, but I didn't know anything about North Carolina Central. And I wasn't smart enough to get into Howard. So, I hung up. You right, Kay?
There's no question we can go all night. Like anyone who would either be on a call at Thursday at 9:30 is someone that's special already chosen by God, or named, appointed, whatever you need, whatever kind of accolade you need to go with that. If you're on this call, you already know who you are. There's no way you'd be here. There's no way you'd spend your energy this way. There's no way you'd spend your time. If I could just choke where I'm at. I know for certain if you are on call like this on a Thursday evening that starts at 9:30 and we tell you up front, well, we try to go to 10:30. But what usually happens is something we cannot control. And most people who sign up, well, not even sign up, but most people who log on to this call at 9:30 are here by 9:35. And you know it's true because we start on time at 9:30. So by 9:35, most of you are already here, and you don't leave for the whole time. And I can prove it. Like I'm in Alabama, but I can prove it. I can go back and look at the documents, the data, and it will show me exactly who was here. And I know there were 17 of us. I happen to also know there were at least 5 men, and we only got one man to talk. That's a problem for me. I'm just like, what are you guys here for? Don't be here just talking. Don't do it.
I'm not a stalker.
No, I know you're not, because you're letting us know your purpose for being here. I know you're not a stalker. You are my example. You are my model. But just tonight, there were at least 5, 6 men on the call and they didn't say nothing. Didn't ask a question from a woman who poured out her backstory before she told you her story, before she told you how God put her in the right place at the right time to be an example of what's going on right now. She gave you her backstory first. We don't need our men to be scared. We don't need you running scared. We need you standing up. We need your help. We need you.
Absolutely. We need everybody in this struggle if we're going to make it.
That's right, but we got men on the call and they just sitting there quiet. That's my issue. Yeah, open your mouth. and say something. Come on, let your voice, put your microphone up. Cry loud, dare not.
Find your voice, black men.
Hello, find your voice. Can we all say that together? We're going to go, what, 1, 2, 3? Find your voice.
Find your voice.
Not even find it. You already have it. Claim it. Claim your voice.
That's right. And
we
even
really
if
need
your
to hear
voice
from you.
Claim your voice.
Yeah, we need to hear from you. Regardless of what the world is telling you, black men, we need our black men. We need you.
Our
and
children need our black men.
We're willing to listen to you. We need you. We need your strength. We need your wisdom. We need your experiences. We need your ideas. You know, this thing about not needing men and all of that, that's that white liberalism stuff. We have always needed our black men. Our children have always needed their fathers and their male role models. So please don't be blinded by that, thinking it's us. It's not us. It's not us. So whenever you see a black woman, she's willing to hear what you have to say.
Amen.
She's always willing to hear what you have to say. We hunger for that. We hunger for the communication and the companionship, for your knowledge and wisdom. We are to walk as two, even if we're not walking intimately as two. We are community. We are family. We are culture. It is all of us.
Amen.
And we're trying to figure out what we're going to do or what we need to do for our children. They're your children too.
Yeah.
You know, we are a village.
Yeah.
We are a village. And everybody counts.
All right, ladies, are we ready to
yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
you, my sister.
Tora gave us the perfect example. The student kept coming back. You know, the client kept coming back. She was quiet, and finally she spoke up. And so the men that are on this line, they heard us speak.
Yes.
They heard us.
Yep.
And they'll be back.
Yeah.
With that, sisters, I'm going to go write my paper, sisters and gentlemen.
Oh, yeah. Right. Blessings to everyone on the line. Blessings.
All right. Peace and blessings. Abundance of love.
Goodbye.
Oh, listen. Before you hang up, this is the word. This is the word we're bringing forth. November 3rd. We're telling everyone to bring their fold-up chairs, to bring their masks, to bring their sanitizer, to bring their business cards. No products, just business cards. We're going to use this to our advantage every way possible. And bring your patience. With that, I say good night and God bless.
Bring it where? November 3rd?
Bring it to the poll. November 3rd.
Oh, okay, November 3rd.
November 3rd. Fold-up chairs, business cards, hand sanitizer, mask, social distancing, and your patience, because we're going to do this.
That's right. But before you go and vote, make sure that if your heart is to vote, that it is also involved in making change. You can't vote and then just let those people just sit there and have their parties for $1,500 a day.
And know who
that's over. We got this window. We have this window. We have this window, the window we have right now. And what I see is come on, we've been voting for years. We've been voting before my mother was born. We've been voting before her mother was born. I'm not impressed.
Then find somebody that impresses
you. We voted in Obama.
We did vote in Obama. So you want to get started on Obama? Okay. So everything you see now in terms of education reform is Obama. He is the only president who ever gave a doggone about education. And since he left, there ain't been nobody talking about education.
Oh, no, yeah.
Right? So I'll be that one. I'll be your token. I promise. Kay has called me to the carpet tonight live, and I heard the call. I don't know who else heard it, but I heard it. So I got about 24 hours. I got about 24 hours to prove to the world that Kate knows what she's talking about. So whoever is questioning Obama's role in all of this, sit tight. I got you. That's all I'm going to say. And Kate, from this point, take it.
I took it, and good night.
Good night.